Now I think I got it all set up here.
Okay.
So go ahead and tell about you and Vera's experiences.
Conversion.
Kind of crazy, yeah, if you want to.
Well, yeah. I have a hard time telling keep my face straight when I tell about it, but you know, I grew up in a home where you heard a lot about Christianity. Father read the Bible to us kids quite a lot. They never went to church simply because of the inconvenience of transportation. But anyhow, I'll go back to Whipple when they had a revival there, and the Father went forward. This was probably in 27, probably in that year. But anyhow, it made an impression on me. I knew that Christianity was the right thing, but I didn't want to accept it. I wanted it. And I was a little while, like, going dark there for a while. But anyhow, it was after you and I got married, and I was drinking quite a lot. I went into the oil field, and they were making home brew, and I got me a jar and was making it, and I got to where I drank that stuff. I was bad. And playing for dances, in the oil field there. But there was a guy came into the oil field there who was a Assembly of God preacher, a Pentecostal holiness. And they built a little church building over there on the highway, just about 3.5 miles south of Garber. And that's where they had sawdust floors, just seats made out of 1x4s and 2x4s. And they were having good meetings. They were having revival meetings pretty often, and they'd invite you and I. But I was drinking and running around playing the dances, and I'd see all the once in a while, and he'd encourage me, and Father would. I always felt like that Christianity was the right thing for anybody, but I got the idea that I wasn't quite ready. Well, they were having this revival, and two boys, a fellow by the name of Homer Bailey and Owen Craig, they were members of the church and had been Christian for quite some time. Homer Bailey had, and he was a real good friend of mine, and he'd say, Hart, come to the church. Come to the church and hear the preaching. So I was working with him, especially Homer. I worked with him every day. And he was riding me pretty heavy about coming to church. I'll never forget this, and this is what I felt that he was going to do. I went home and told Daryl. I said, let's go to church tomorrow. Maybe they'll leave us alone. Well, we went to church, and we went rather late, thinking we'd get a back seat, but you don't get a back seat in most churches. If you go late, you get a front.
Sure.
So they ushered us clear down within, I think, 2 pews of the front seat. I had a young boy who was a preacher, and he was a good preacher. Preaching the lost people. He'd had a deep experience with the Lord, and he knew how to tell people how to be saved. Well, he preached for quite a little while, and then when he gave the altar call, this little pastor was sitting over on the corner of the stage, his name was Jimmy McIntyre. And just as soon as the invitation started, we had to stand, and I'll never forget, I was standing with my hand like this over that clipboard in front of me, my head down. You'd think I was singing. And all of a sudden, somebody slipped their hand in the mic. And I thought, well, I didn't know what to say. He said, the first thing he said to me, he said, are you a Christian? I said, no. And then he said, well, wouldn't you like to be? And I said, yes, I would. I didn't know this. This was the thing. I'm a strong believer in prayer. They had a group, they were having cottage prayer meetings before this revival started. And they had Vera and I on this list, praying for. Well, I had no idea what was going to happen. But the Lord spoke to me just as plain that night, and He did Vera. This was a miracle. And He never said a word to her. But when He asked me, and I said yes, and He said, "Why don't you come down to the altar?" But she just started out; she was ready, and we both went down to the altar, and they had people down there praying with us, and I felt a change coming over me, but I really didn't feel it to the extent that I wanted to until I got home. And we had a little old steel cot that was bolted down, make kind of receptive. And I was kneeling halfway down on my knees, I guess, and I cried out to God. And there was just just a sudden change came over me. Danny, salvation is a miracle. I was Baptist, sir. I thought you were big. I thought it was big to swear. I thought you had to be one of the boys, But I haven't. That was in 1933. I haven't used a curse word since. God just
Took it all away.
Absolutely.
What'd you do about the beer? Just dump it in?
I gave it away. I didn't drink when I was 7 I haven't drank since. And I was getting pretty close to that. I drank every day, and I drank heavy. There was guys there that made it. You never run into a place that they didn't have brew. I drank it all the time. I went over there in that oil field in 26, and I started drinking heavy. Then I had been drinking, playing the dance, and I always had a bottle. If you didn't have it, somebody else had to pour it, And I went and drunk a lot of nights and snuck in the house. Tried to keep away from folks, and I did for a while. But this was a wonderful changing point in my life.
Well, you've had one, like I said a while ago, our preacher talked about a mountaintop experience. I mean, you can definitely go back and say, it happened at this time.
I wish I could remember the day, but I don't remember. It was in September, about 6 weeks before that. I'll never forget the next night in my building was in October. And that was worth. That was worth $1 million. To tell my father that he didn't have too many days left on this earth until I was born.
Well, what about Orville? Did he have a conversion or like that experience?
I don't
or was
know.
He just...
I don't know that he did, Danny. I'm just not sure about Orville. As I said up there last night, Orville used to be a pretty rough character. First time I don't know this something tape or not.
It's all right.
First time I ever had to drink a chalk beer that black people used to make back there. Orville gave it to me. But when he started going with Mildred, he got serious about it then. although he was a change. He changed. I don't know anything about his conversion. I couldn't tell you. I wish I could, but I don't know. But then, well, after, I'm going back again, right at the time my father's died, we organized a Sunday school there at Whipple, and Orville was Sunday school superintendent. And we all went there, your mother went, and Vera went, and Rose come. Vera's aunt played the organ, or played the piano that we had there, and a lot of the neighbors came. Ben Hughes, and Jenny Hughes, Ray Hughes, and Ben Hughes' family. They were both there. This little girl I was telling about last night over here. They all come to Sunday school. All of the Sunday school superintendent.
This was the old Whipple schoolhouse?
The old Whipple schoolhouse, yeah. But then, after our conversion, see, that was Independent Seminary God Church where we were saved. And Doctor and I never could agree with them. They were fine people. But I was working with a man who was a Baptist Sunday school superintendent in the Baptist Church at Garber. And they began to want us to go up there. It was about 4 months after we were saved until we went into the Baptist Church. And we went in up there in 1934 in the spring. I was ordained as a deacon in 1936, and I've been an active deacon ever since. Until I came over here, and I'd always told myself when I got to be an old man, and it was a little bit hard for me to work off theology, like when we served communion and like that I was going to take a back seat and let young men do it, and I have. I still visit people. I call all of these old women around all the time. I keep in touch with them, things like that. But I have always been, and my friends in North Point has helped me do it. I've always been an active Christian. Let me see. It's the only life. It's the only life. Then it's an easy life, and beautiful, pleasant life when you know your heart's right with God. That is life. That is life. To know the Lord. And Vera was Vera had been brought up in Christian, the folks that come to church. Vera had a good conversion. And he was a good worker in the church. That was when we were, I was 28, so she had been 25, so we were both young.
Yeah. So you spent your whole life?
Yeah. We went to Kansas in 39, and I was in the Baptist Church of any kind in Boise, town of around 3,000 people. It's a busy town, railroad town. And I began to look around and see what the possibilities were, and I found out there was a little church they called Baptist out northwest of Boise, about 15 miles. Good, I went out there, so I went down to Great Bend and visited with the man who was pastor of the first American Baptist church like we've got here. They're all, American Baptists are all right, but they don't have the spizzerington and push that Southern Baptists have, or Methodists either. In your country, Methodists here are kind of like American Baptists. They don't have the go. But anyhow, we organized a Southern Baptist church in Hawaii. We bought a building out in North Boise, and it had been an old Lutheran building, and they had good having services out there. Pretty little church, had a tall, and had little balcony in it, you know. And we put a full basement under the church plus another basement as big as down there, the biggest size of the church. And a lot of oil field people there, a lot of Southern Baptists came up from Texas and Oklahoma, and Phillips people, Carter people, and Sinclair people, and Conoco people, and just a lot of us. We built a church there pretty fast, and we got in it was the way it started though. I was in town one Saturday afternoon, and I heard a guy preaching on the street. He had an old Plymouth, about a 37 model, I think, and he had some loudspeakers on the top of that. Red-headed guy, and I heard him preaching, and I listened to him. And he indicated while he was in town, he was going to try to organize a Southern Baptist church. And I walked up to him after we got through, and I told him, I said, this just thrills me to death. I said, I've been trying to get some kind of action started in this town. And he said, well, praise the Lord. He said, I need somebody. So we first held our first service in an old German church that they were there in town. They weren't having a service there then, see, but it was empty. So we rented that and had a revival there. And a lot of people came into the church, and a lot of people, because they were in town and they'd been active in churches where they came from, see, but they'd moved there and there wasn't any Baptist church, so they just quit going. When we started this revival, man, they just locked in there, and we got, and fine people, men with tithers.
Yeah. That's what you needed for a new church.
That's right. And we moved that church in there, had one big guy that was working for a trucking company, and they would allow him to use that truck, you know, and it didn't cost us too much to get that building moved in there. And then we got first pastor we got was kind of a washout. But we had two that were real good men. And we grew. And after I left, see, this was organized about 47. And I was transferred to St. John at the end of the year 1953. I left, but then after I left, they built a cement block, L-shaped building there in Horsing, nice church. We got some friends that were in contact with occasionally that are still members. And people that they're people, the friends I've mentioned, are people that Bill and I got to go. So it worked out real nice. I was the first Sunday school superintendent of that church. And the only deacon at the time was organized. And I have been, I don't know, it just seemed like, and I was the only guy that, and what I learned a little about leading singing was that Whipple in Sunday school, you know, I learned some of those songs, and I knew how to, always liked music, and liked to sing, and I was a song leader, and didn't have a good pianist, but we got things to go, and we had one of the best pastors that I've ever served, that I've been around, ever served under, was there for a while. F. Clyde Aikman, he's dead now, but he was educated in the Nazarene College at Edmond, Oklahoma. And after he got to preaching, he studied doctrine. He decided he was a Southern Baptist. So we called him from a little town down in Oklahoma. He came up there and was our pastor. Boy, he and I were real good friends, and he was a good preacher. Good preacher.
Now this was still at Whipple, or did he come to Hoising?
Hoising. What I'm telling you, this is all
okay.
Hoising and say after it. after we went to Kansas.
Do you remember the full name of that church and what the name of it was?
We just called the First Southern Baptist Church.
First Southern
First Southern Baptist. I'd like to go back to it. There's one boy that was a member there, and I think that, well, he told the lady that it was our influence that got him and his wife to go in, because we used to visit where he worked in the gang with me on the bulletin board. We got him to go in, and I don't know just when, but he worked for Continental, and we sent him down. Your dad knew him, sent him down in that area. And he came by the Hoisman Church here the last few years. I don't know, a friend of mine told me when the boys gave $10,000.
How was that? That's true.
Harry Deal. He retired and he lives in Houston.
Harry Deal?
Harry Deal.
I don't remember they talking about him.
Yeah. Well, I remember being down to your dad's one time when I was there to visit Harry. Because he was my rig man up when I was running the service. And then another boy by the name of Ben Steinley, he's still down in there, transferred down.
I want to get you to comment on what well, the first thing, your mother and dad are buried at Polo, aren't they?
Yes.
See, what we're wanting to do is to visit these grave sites and take some photos and include those in our booklet. Okay, now I'll just have to find them once we get there. And Aunt Barry's buried in Perry at the
Grace Hill.
Grace Hill. Okay, Grandpa and your grandmother and grandfather, do you know where they're buried? On the Wells side.
Yes. Right down here in Fairmont.
Okay, that's who Lizzie was talking about last night, and I got confused. I was saying Grandma and Granddad, and she was saying Grandma and Granddad, but she was talking about hers, and I was talking about mine. I said, well, Grandma and Granddad Wells is buried at Polo, and she said, no, I thought they were buried at Fairmont. So we were both right. We were talking about two different grandpas.
Yeah.
But they're both buried at Fairmont.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's just one cemetery or?
It's just one cemetery down here, and it's are you gonna try to make it by there today?
I doubt it. I don't know how far it is to Fairmont.
It wouldn't be any idea where it is to go by there going to Perry. Be by it, we'd be out the week going to Palm City.
Yeah, we're going to Ponca when we leave here. So.
That's the thing I can help you though. Claudia and I got feeling halfway decent. I feel all right. Claudia,
Yeah.
Really, but I think after she gets rested up, she'll be fine. But we're going to go down even before long. We're going to go out there and take some pictures. I don't like where it's at because when we found them, they were leaning with these tall, sitting on blocks, you know. And Claudia and I went down in the pickup and we lined up and met us there. And I don't remember that Bill and Gail maybe did. And we took I took some brick and some crowbars when we lived upon the farm. We went down and straightened them up. And there's a sister there. Barbara's sister buried there.
Julia?
No, Fanny.
Fanny.
Julia's buried down in the Covenant Cemetery right south of Covenant. Uncle Fred's buried down there. And now, but Fanny, she was married to Sam Elliott. And they had one daughter, Elsie. Fanny died when Elsie was born. Elsie's about to the age of 11. He homesteaded the farm just across the road west of Dad's old homestead. And he was Elliott's side. mother's first name. Maiden name was Elliot.
Right.
I think Sam was mother's cousin.
Okay, now the Elliots are buried there at Crescent. Is that right? Yeah, Grandma and Granddad Elliot.
Grandma and Grandma, and Alice and Della, two little girls that died. Mother's younger sisters are buried there. And Aunt Mary and Aunt Ella. There's 6, if my memory serves me right, there's 6 burials there.
Now, is there again, is it just one cemetery at Crescent as far as
Yes.
you know?
It's Blacktop Road goes east out of Crescent about, I'd say about 2 miles. You go north, and it's on the right side of the road. You go up about halfway, as I remember, the cemetery to the gate. You can ride in there. The graves are back down this way
From the entrance.
gate, from the entrance.
Okay, let's see. I asked, did you remember? You said you really didn't remember too much about your grandfather and grandmother, did you? Did you say that?
On the Wells side.
Wells side.
Not too much. I think I remember Grandmother Wells, just slightly. See, what I remember her was before we left the homestead. After that, I don't remember that I ever seen her. I may have gone to a funeral, but I think she died when she was 72. And
Now, where did they live in respect to where you guys live?
they lived. Do you know where Uncle Fred Miner lived? Can you picture his place down there?
No, I don't remember any of those.
I wish that we had time just to drive down there in that country and show you around. See, I don't know where to start, but I'll tell you where they lived when I knew them. They lived in a little house at Uncle Fred Miner. Have you ever been to the homestead where Dad homestead?
I'm sure I have.
Yeah, all right. Fred Miner lived a mile south, a half mile west. And he married Aunt Julie, father's oldest sister, see. And he was a well-to-do farmer. He was a man that could make money on the farm. And he had, they had built a little house back north of their main house. He had built a big nice house. And that's where Grandfather Wells and Grandmother Wells lived, was out there. See, when they came, when Grandfather Wells came out west here, I don't know whether or not he staked a claim out in this city or not. But anyhow, they migrated down and over. And I don't know whether they own land down there or not. I just don't know. Uncle and Granddad Elliot knew, but I don't know anything about that. But I know when the Cherokee Strip was open, they lived in over there. Dad staked his claim up there. He was single. They came up and lived on that homestead again. Built that little 2-room house, I think that's right. All of the kids were born up through here. And then when he left, or when he got married, I guess that's when my father built that little house down there for just north of Uncle Fred's farm.
Do you remember? You know, I was telling you last night this morning, this thing's got where you put sizes and everything. Would you have any idea about your grandfather's size? Was he was pretty tall, man, but or appeared to be. I don't know.
I would, I'm just judging him kind of an Uncle Warren. I would imagine he was 6 or 6'1", and probably weighed, I imagine around 165, 70, maybe 80 pounds when he was younger, because Father did. Father wasn't quite 6 foot. He's about 5'11" and a half. But I can remember him weighing 90 pounds. He was, pretty less than that, Dad was.
How about your mother?
Mother was 5 foot. She was 5'3", wore 3.5 shoes, little bitty, little bone person, but kind of roly poly.
Okay, I was gonna say because most of the pictures I've seen of her, she was heavier, you know.
Yeah, she was pretty heavy. I think she weighed. I think I remember one time she weighed 107.
You know, and this is something I mentioned in that letter. We know, I won't say a lot, but we know quite a bit about your father, but I don't know too much information about your mother as far as, you know, the type of person she was and some of the things about her like we have about your dad.
Well, she was a very lovely person. She never had very much to say. She was good to us kids. Worked like a slave.
I can imagine. With 11 kids.
Trying to keep us going. She bought flannel cloth and made our underwear, made our PJs, made our shirts, and was pregnant 90% of the time during the marriage. Yeah. And lived in a hovel. That little home we built there in Perry was a nice little home. Why in the world they sold it, I don't know. Why in the world they left that home over there that they got when they settled around that Alex estate? Nice house then. It's an old house, but the girls, the old maid down Ellen and Mary had built a long room on the side, a big room, and it was just a very nice home. A 2-bedroom, a nice kitchen, dining room, and then that big room on the side there. Lovely. Always admired it. And they got that in, I think, 17 or 18 acres. With the orchard, barn, and everything. And I don't know. I think Uncle Andy, mother's brother, some way he got it. He wanted to come back to Covenant, he and I family. And he'd like to have the place that his dad owned. I don't know what they got. I don't know. They moved over then northwest of Perry, a little shack. Just a terrible. Dad was good to us kids. But I don't know what happened. He just got down when he sold that farm, and by the time he got a house built for us to live in, he was broke. And from that time, he was broke until he died. He never had nothing. It seemed like that he got to where that he lost all of ambition to get ahead. And then he got sick. And I don't know. He was a good man. And a well-liked man. People liked him. But I know that we thought a lot of in a way, and then but we were considered a poor family. All of us kids married in that beautiful community.
Yeah.
All 6.
Amazing.
Yeah. And Dad, Missy, Noel and Oliver, all married. It was a nice community. I don't know. My mother was on the heavy side when they married. Like got their pictures up with the wedding picture hanging up there in the wall. And I think she was 19 and he was 27. He was born in 72 and she was born in 79. 6 years different.
Yeah, I was going to say, this year he would have been 120 and she would have been 114, I believe. So 6 years difference.
Yeah. See, they live down in Crescent. That's where they're going to play. It was down in the Crescent area. But Granddaddy Elliot had land down there. He had, they had lived in Hutchinson for a while. Granddaddy Elliot lived when he came from Illinois, coming down this way. Came into Oklahoma. But I don't know what he was down there and made the run, and then the Oklahoma run in 89 or something. Yeah, in 89. See, 4 years before the Cherokee Strap. When that was settled. I don't know if he staked the claim, but he owned land. I don't know how he got it. Well, probably that's where he got it.
Yeah, I believe you.
And then he traded that. He traded that then for that farm up there. Like Hutton, where the folks go.
I noticed in the information that you had written up for the Noble County Register mentioned the prairie fires and the blizzards and things. Or do you recall any specific about one of those or something?
Yeah, I remember Dad telling about. He had a yoke of oxen. They called them over Buck and Berry. And they burnt cow chips, for it. It wasn't any timber. Way back then, it wasn't any timber in this country. It was just prairies. And they did have a lot of prairie fires. They would plow their around their buildings, for protection. But I can remember telling about him when I was born, going out and taking a Buck and Berry and what they had for a wagon and going out and gathering the cow chips, bringing them in for the winter. They lived in the sod house. And I remember him telling about a blizzard they had when they lived out there. So they had, I remember him telling they had a wire running from the corner of the house to the barn, and they would hang up that wire, and smoke.
It's so bad.
Glad I remember that. But I don't know if that's about as much as I remember. But all of their children were born in Vermont, see. They didn't have any children born out here. And Fanny was, Dad was the youngest of them. There was Warren and Aunt Julie, then Levi, and Dad, and then Aunt Fanny. There was 5 of them. And Fanny was the youngest. They were all born when they came out here. And I think, maybe I've told you this, but they came west, as Father used to call it, to keep on the warm out of the penitentiary, out of jail.
Yeah.
It was fighting.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. I probably told you too about one time. Oh, I don't remember when it was, probably back in the 40s. We met Sammy and Stella. That's Burdette at the cafe there. Here and I had some friends who owned the cafe there, and we met Sam and Stella there. We were going out around Nest City in there and see if we could find out where they lived when they were out there, when they lived in Nest County. But we never did find anyone. Never did find anyone. Sammy. And we had Sammy's aunt on his mother's side, lady by the name of King. Well, they had his aunt and her cousin. They met this way too. In fact, Sam and Stella had been up there and stayed all night at Great Bend with them. Then they met us at Burdette. We were trying to find And one old lady, she was up in her 80s, Sammy's Ann, and she had lived in that country. Yeah, she said, I know I can go right to it, but buildings were gone, you know, everything had changed, you know. We never did find it. We drove into one place and asked if they had remembered anything, and the Wells family had been living in there. You couldn't get any information, but the place to get that information, go to the courthouse.
Yeah, right.
Get that. I have thought about going out to Mississippi and go to the courthouse, register deeds, and get all of that information. Just like Bill and I did about the story about Uncle Lawrence, father-in-law, you know, that got killed over at Madison Lawrence. We've got all of that information too. Through the paper and through the old lady that was court clerk, what had happened.
It just takes time and a lot of digging, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. Sure does. Yeah.
You know, part of what we want to do on this thing, go back and on each one of the children or their families, have some little comment or story about it. And what I was wondering, if we got the time, if you can think of anything, just start at the top. Well, like with Aunt Lily and John. You know, some comments about them, and then we'll go down to who's next, Merle or you know. And I'm sure it's just like Uncle John. I remember the fried taters and all this he wanted for breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It don't have to be in that order, but
I don't remember much about John really until we got to be teenagers, because I went to school, I think, 1 year there at Elmdale on the old homestead in and and we didn't see much of John until he and Lily went to school together, you know, and we got some cool pictures of them. Lily Lily was a pretty little girl, beautiful.
yeah, she was
really beautiful. And let's see. Like I said last time, I don't remember so much of my childhood years that I just don't remember. But tell them more about tomorrow. Some things about Lily that
well, it wasn't not even childhood, you know, after they got married or something. If you had anything.
well, after they got married, John and I both worked for St. Clair, you know, and we lived just a little ways apart. And on Lee was born, I remember this story well. Ari, the older brother, was living with John and Lily. He was also working for St. Clair. And I could go back farther than that. Danny, John and I, when I was about 18.
Go ahead.
I went over to the oil field, and John and I got a job from the same company, and we stayed at John's oldest sister and her husband's place. And this boy, if you saw John's nephew that was at John's funeral with the leg off, Ralph Martin, he was just a little boy at this time, and a nice little kid. John and I boarded there and worked out in the oil field, worked for a Coston oil company. And John and I were together, close friends for a long time, you know. We worked together there in the oil field, and for several years, John was well liked. Every place he went, John was well liked. And he's the guy that came over and got me that job for St. Clair, you know. And I'd been working for Eli on that bridge gang, but they had moved from out in northwest of Enid, so I could have went with them, but I didn't. It just wasn't a good job, you know, shoveling gravel or anything. But anyhow, John and I worked there until Sinclair had an air plant that would pressurize these valves similar to a water flood when he done it with air. And he was working on the well one night. They were swabbing it, trying to get the thing, getting the load off of the snow so the air would start the thing to flow. And they had a 150-pound test L in that line that sometimes put 300 or 400 pounds of pressure on. It was under the floorboards of this well, under the, you know, the old reach, three was on the floor. And that thing blew up and never broke down back. It was laid up for a long, long time. And that's when he quit. He got no settlement, as I remember, out of Sinclair. And then that's when he and Lily went to farming. And he first farmed. See, this time I'm in Kansas, so much happened.
No, you don't know what.
And I just don't know.
Now, during that time, we lived fairly close to him, I think.
He came down them southeast of Perry and lived close to you in Yorkville. Yeah. And I think John, I think your dad went to work when I was in the service, and so did John.
For Continental.
Yeah. I was in service, you see, from July of 43 until August of 45.
I wonder if Daddy went to work for Continental when we moved to Crescent.
Let's see, when I came back out of the Army, Daddy was in Crescent.
Okay, see, I was started the 3rd grade in Crescent.
Then
So,
you remember us being down at your place. You lived south of town on the east side of the road.
yeah. We had the little outdoor toilet.
Yeah. And then your dad took me over on the lease where he was a good hand for Conoco.
Oh, yeah. He took pride in his work. That's where he took that file and scratched Conoco in those sand rocks around that tank battery.
Yeah. Oh, he took pride in it. I did too. Well, and I came, see, I hadn't been working for Conoco very long, it's about 11 and a half months when I got the service. And it was a subsidiary. I can't even call the name of it now. Under Conoco control. But anyhow, when I quit St. Clair, I went to work for Conoco in 1942. They put me on this job. There was one pumping one unit, and pulling a jack over the backside crank, you know, off the shaft, crankshaft on the wheel. And that's all there was on that place. But they were going to build some more wells and build a company house on it. And they did. When I got out of the service, they built that new house, little 4-room house. And it wasn't modern, but it had a nice little toilet, had a garage, had a windmill, and it just fixed up so nice. And Beer and I, after I got home on, when I was home on furlough, I came home for 21 days, and then I had to go to Fort Meade, Maryland to get my discharge. And I came home, and we got meals. I had a 39 Chevrolet. And I went over to see the boss. He said, Howard, he said this. things are bad around here right now. He said, you know that guy that's in that house over there on your lease? He said he's got 4 little kids and his wife's expecting again. And he said there's not a, he said, I don't suppose he could find a place to rent anyway. He said, would you mind, would you take another job? It doesn't have a company house. And he said, as soon as one shows up with a company house, I'll see that you get it. And I said, well, Bob, I said, Bill and I both, and we both knew him and wife. We were so head-bent on living out there. It was, just a lovely place to live. Quiet, you know, fishing pond right there, not too far. And had a garage for the car, and it just, we wanted to go out there so bad. It was about 9.5 miles out of Claflin, right northwest. Nice country, nice country. And we had got oriented in Kansas to where we liked it, see. And we had started to go, we went to the Methodist church there in Poison for a little while. This is back, you see, before I went to service. But anyhow, or after I got back out of service. Anyhow, he said, there's a job over here at Sault-Saint, that's straight north of Poison. He said, it's a good job. He said, we don't have a company house on it, don't intend to build. But he said, when one opens up, he said, I'll do my best to get you on. So I said, okay. So he took the job out in Illinois, and I was on it not too many miles. I had to use my own car and was getting a car allowance, $12 a month. And they had 2 leases right straight west of Poison, 4.5 miles. And the terrain was just about like this out there. You could see right down on the top of Poison. Those houses out there, and there was 2 of them out there, 5 room efficiency homes, gas and electricity, running water, and one of the guys and his wife were separated, and I saw this in the paper, and I took it to my boss, Bob Lee. I said, Bob, if these people separate, I just figured that you wouldn't let him advance in their house. He said, well, what makes you think I wouldn't let him advance? And I said, well, I didn't figure it out. And I don't know, he's kind of out of snuff that morning, I guess. But anyhow, I said, do you give me permission to go to the district superintendent about it? And he said, yeah. There, and I just got in the car and drove over there. And I said, I've been promised when I went to work for this outfit that I'd get a company house. I've been out of the Army, and you know, you get pushed around a little in there, and I decided I was going to be pushing myself after I got back. And I'll never forget, it was Bill Drayson, the guy that drew up down there right near where Merle and Alice lived, you know. And I had known him. I had known him. I went over and I saw him. He was assistant superintendent. And I told him what the deal was, and he said, Howard, if we make any changes out there, I'll see that you get that house. And I did. It was just, you know, practically new. We moved out there, and boy, we just loved that place. You know how they rip wrap their house. It faced the east, and it was ripped up, and it had a flat yard, and a 2.5 pipe fence all around with a nice gate, and an attached garage go right out of the garage into the kitchen. And I wasn't out there not a year. And here old Bobby came and he said, Howard. He and I were good friends. Bob liked me and I liked him. And he said, how would you like to have a promotion? And I said, Bob, I'm the most content operator you've got right here. Wow. I said, I've got just what I want. And he said, do you want anything better? And I said, well, it depends a great lot on what it would be. He said, well, how about running that building? I said, oh my gosh, man, no. He said, pays more money. I said, I know, but I said, this is fine. I said, Vera likes his house so well. And I said, no, I didn't. He said, pays 20 cents an hour more than what you get.
20 cents an hour.
And I said, does furnish company house? And he said, no, it wouldn't. I said, well, 20 cents an hour sure wouldn't offset the house. And he said, well, I'm just like, he said, I wouldn't take it either. He said, I run one, and I started working for him. He said, but he said, Howard, you kind of got to look at it like this. He said, if you want to go on up the ladder, you're going to have to take it kind of step at a time. He said, this is just the first run. But we kind of talked about it, and I thought it was kind of subtle. It wasn't. A week or two in here, he came to the district superintendent. And he said, you put on your record when you went to work for us that you were
Willing to advance, or
and knew well servicing. I said, I do. I said, I didn't say in there that I ever operated the unit. He said, well, you do that, couldn't you? I said, well, other people do. I think they can. Well, he said, we got a little better offer today. He said, we got a house just like you live in. You can move in that house. He said, you only have to pay $12 a month for the gas, for the house and gas. Oh, wonderful then. Company job, see, I was living. Then I was in that company house. Oh, we were so happy there. And he said, well, you'd have to move in the camp up there. And he said, he'll pay, give you a house to live in. And he said, transfer to advancement, merit advancement instead of, so I operated that plane for 6 years.
say that meant, did it mean longer hours? And
No, I just worked 8 hours a day.
was that right?
Wasn't any, just worked 8 hours a day, but it was so competitive. There were so many contractors around there, you see. And Continental was one of their prime objectives was safety.
Yeah.
But when you got out on the job, sometimes they kind of forgot it. But they wanted me to do as much of that Wells service unit and work as safe as those contractors. You can't do it. You know? And they worked long hours. But I got to where on a 3,200 foot well, Danny, I could run those rods in that many minutes. I got to where I was faster than I could have radios in that rig, and boy, I'll tell you, you snapped them, hung them in the rig.
Yeah.
50 foot length. Hung them in the rig, and on the radio to have one was cranked out there when I got up there, that won't be lasted up, jerked his little elevator off, and I just dropped those things and get about 5 foot from down, I just hit that brake and had good guys on the floor, and it lights that elevator on and up could go up. It was fun. Had a big unit with what kind of lights, all you had to do was just push it,
Hydraulic.
And that thing was fast. I enjoyed what he could. We'd run this string of tubing and just over an hour, just drop that stuff. But it was fun. An oiler came up there one time, came out over the job. I had a little ladder made out of sucker rods at the time up to the seat where I was sitting on the part rug and watched me there for a while, and we were pulling tubing. not very far from the camp where we lived. He came up there, and so I shut her down and took him up on the floor to introduce him to the boys. You know, I was from after Pumpkin One, he came up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had worked in the oil field before. He was helping them towing the tubing in. And I don't remember how long it was after that he came back up there, walked up on the floor and called all three of those boys by the first name.
Remember it.
He was always like that. When he met you, he in most cases, the administrator would sign the next time he knew his name. Orville was a good relationship man. He was good communicator. But then after I got off of that, they gave me a pickup. See, and I had a chance one time to get a lease farmer's job, and you know what kept me from it? I didn't drink.
How was that?
My foreman came in, he said, Howard, I had to go up to Pratt with it and take our superintendent a bottle of whiskey last night. He was staying up there at the motel, and he said, he asked me all kinds of questions about you, and asked me if I thought that you was qualified for a foreman's job. And I said, I told him you were. And he said, how about Howard's drinking? And Gleason Tapp was my foreman's name. And Gleason said, Howard is a teetotaler, he doesn't drink. He said, you mean he don't drink? Won't even take a drink? Gleason said, no, I don't drink. So I said, well, we couldn't use him as a foreman, then he could do. I was proud of it.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But I relieved him a lot. I relieved the foreman every year when I was on vacation. I'm kind of glad I didn't get a lot of headaches to it. And throw it in with the different crowds, you know. But I had a good 27 and a half years with Conoco. Dad had a good time with it too.
Oh, good. Conoco's been good to the Wells. You know, we was talking about John. He said he got hurt, and then they went to farming. Did that last very long? Because he went to work for Conoco too, didn't he?
He went to work for Conoco when I was in the service. I think probably about 42.
Did he work in the field, or was it the refining?
He worked in the field. Right up there in the field, yeah. When he came over after us, they had made him a pusher over a bunch of teams that was doing dirt work. And that's what he was doing. So he was kind of pushing. The foreman told him, he said, we need some men. Asked John if he knew where to get some men. And he came over there. Well, in fact, he came over there for me and your dad. And Raymond didn't want to go, so we got Art Miller on. Me and Art went, and Art was buried just a few weeks ago.
Oh, Art's has done it?
Yeah,
Oh,
85 years old. See, he was out there at family reunion last year.
Yeah, I remember.
Art died. Yeah, just a few months older, younger than I am. But now, you said that, well, John farmed down there in southeast Prairie quite a lot. He lived just straight east of Whipple, west of Whipple Schoolhouse. 3 miles there for a while. And don't remember where he lived when they first got the farm. No, they lived up north of Whipple when he first went to farm. Lived up north of Whipple on old Doc Shackelford's farm. And that's where the folks lived, up by Central School, and that was 6 miles north of Whipple, I believe 5 or 6 miles. And that's where Emily went. Emily and Beanie and Jupe went when they moved to the old Elliott place over there, northwest of Perry, up there by Central Schoolhouse, north of Whipple. And John and Lily lived up there on the old Shackelford place. And See, he done this when I was in Kansas, and I just don't remember about it when he went down south of town there. I remember about being down to your place when we lived up in Kansas. He was just a little boy.
Yeah. Right.
Dad had some cattle. I remember being down there.
Had an old hog,
Yeah.
Shetland ponies.
Lived on the old Jairus place, I believe, a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's Jairus and what they call the old Bay place.
The old Bay place, I remember being. It was on the west side of the road, but the Bay place.
I don't know. Those two were across the road from each other,
Yeah.
I think, or not too far.
Well,
So-
the Bay place was on the west side of the road, as I remember, Danny, and then he went a little way south and went east, and the Jairus place was on the north side of the road, as I remember.
I don't remember where they are.
Babe, you know, me and your dad one time, your dad and mother came up in his pickup when it was right, it was after you and I had moved to Perry.
Mhm.
We went out, and they had been out, we got up early, and he had that box full of oats.
Oh, okay.
And they stayed and ate dinner with us. Bear got dinner for them. And we hadn't been in Perry too long. But anyhow, me and your dad got in the car and drove back out to the old country where we used to live, you know. Old farming place and the old Parson place where Jude was born. We had a real good day together. But we couldn't get to the old Jairus place because, see, that was all in the water then. That they made a lake there.
Oh, is that right?
But I knew Charlie Jairus after I moved to Perry. He was on a taxi there in town. Always hung out there at the Boston drugstore on the northeast corner of the square.
Yeah, I mean, then on the opposite end of that square was the old pool hall.
Yeah.
And Granddad Marshall hung out there a lot.
Oh, yeah. Down to Arcadia.
Yeah.
And I remember Rustlin and Trula and Ellen after Roscoe died. See, Roscoe died after we moved to Perry. And it always come down to the Boston drugstore in the morning to drink coffee. I remember Russ a lot of times just sat in his car, you know, he had hard for him to get out. And I was usually downtown and down walking down the square. Oh, I enjoyed myself after we got to Perry. I was there as a kid. Me and your dad we used to ride those old ponies, go in there and go to the show, you know. I think it was a nickel we paid to go in there. Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Hey, but what about some of Merle? The only thing I remember about Merle as far as job was concerned, he ran that maintainer, they call it, for the county, didn't he?
Yeah.
But did he do much prior to that? Or I
Well,
wonder what
no, Merle was, I'll go back. Merle left home, quit living at home pretty early, I think, maybe when he was probably over 17. He rented the place, we lived close by, but he rented the place and took care of himself. Merle didn't like the way Dad operated. Merle had ambition that Dad didn't have. And I say this all respect to my daddy.
I understand.
You understand.
Right.
He just didn't have to get up and go to. I just don't know why. As nice a man as he was, and all of the good qualities he had, but he just lacked the know-how to make it all. Only with his hands. But anyhow, Merle left home, and Raymond and I spent a lot of time with him. At night we'd go up and visit with him. And when we lived there on the old Meeks place, when we first moved out away from Cudden, Garfield County, moved back over to Cudden, northwest of Perry, there on the Meeks place. That's where Beanie was born. We moved over there in the fall of 1919. Emery was just a baby. He was born in July in 1919. And we moved over there, had a house with an upstairs, 2 rooms upstairs, 2 down and a long kitchen on the north. And it was a nice place, had a nice little barn, and had your driveway in the middle and the stalls on each side, set east and west. It was a nice little barn. And I think they had 4 heads on each side. They used to put 8 heads. But Merle at that time began to get his own stock, and but then it wasn't very long after that till he moved away, and he never did live back. He got his own horses, he got his own farm, and done a little horse trading, and always had a nice saddle horse, Dandy. And I remember Merle bought a new saddle one time. It was just as plain as an army hat. Never had any design of any kind on it. Had an 18-inch swell on it. It'd kill you. You know, if you didn't have your stirrups just right. And it had a little spotted horse that was alive to book around. And Merle rode him. He was a show horse. It was pretty. And Merle always dressed nice. And you go to Merle's house and he always had plenty to eat. He always had plenty to eat. And Merle knew how to make money, and he knew how to save a little. And he had some money when he died. Well, had some money. Not a lot of money, but he had some. Considered everything. You see, Alice's folks divided their land, and Merle and Alice got 28. Merle bought a little oil field house from the fellow that I knew, a fellow named Brown, and moved it over there on that little farm. Do you remember where that was?
I don't remember where it was. I remember the place. Had a little cistern right outside the door, and they had all kinds of cats and dogs.
Oh, yeah. Well, they lived there for a long time. I got him a job over in the oil field, and he worked over there some, but he just couldn't be there on time. You know, muddy roads like that, and he didn't stay very long. But anyhow, it wasn't too long until he got that job operating that maintainer, and he operated, I don't know how long, but there was a pension plan that the county had, you know, and he was done with his pension when he quit, and he'd saved some money, and he was just a swell guy, Merle was. He wasn't, Merle didn't get any education, but he wasn't dumb.
Did he go to school at all?
Yes, he went. He went until he just got so big for the class that he wanted to quit. Father didn't argue with him to let him quit. But Merle just didn't get very far. But he was smart. You could tell he didn't have any education by his way he taught, but he was a well-liked man, and respected him.
Did he ever learn to write? I was going to say there was an indication from Leona that some of the letters that he had written, that Daddy had actually written the letters, and Merle had dictated to him.
Your dad did write to him. Alice, when Alice was sick.
Yes, in the hospital where he needed.
Yeah, your dad wrote the letters.
Okay, I don't remember what Uncle Merle died of. Did he have a heart attack, or was it just sudden?
Well, he'd had some problems before that. He carried glycerin with him all the time. And he had passed out. You know, he had a little house down on the east side of town.
Yes.
That's where he stayed most of the time, because he had one he lived with. There wasn't any relationship between them that were the who did. And That's where he stayed most of the time. He had some dogs down there, and he had a refrigerator in there, and he had what he wanted to eat. And he didn't stay down there nights, I don't think. But I know he didn't any time I was down there with him, but he spent a lot of his time down there. But, see, I lost the train of thought. Where were we?
We were talking about his health. Why did he die?
Well,
I mean, what did he die of?
well, it was, he went to bed. He had this problem. He wouldn't talk about it. But she told me one time that they were down in that little house. And they were going from house out to the chicken house. And Nora just fell down. Just fell down. And I think probably it was his heart. He just quit him just for a split second. But I don't know whether they got some blistering down him or what. Then the other night he died. Now this, Beer and I were down there. See, I was retired. I had this little travel trailer. We had it parked just south of the Frisco Depot. As you come into the area on the old road, you know. Mm-hmm. On the east side there, a little parking area for travel trailers.
Somewhere around where Voight's office used to be.
Yeah.
They talking about in that area.
Yeah, a little closer downtown.
Yeah.
And Merle was down there. He came down there, and yeah, he was driving a white Ford. And he came down there and had a couple of dogs in the car with him. And we pulled out. We were leaving there on Wednesday. And Beer and I have been parked there about 6 weeks. We've been down to Orville's. We've been over there, down to your dad's. And we first came to Franklin, stayed there a night or two, and then we went on down to your dad's and stayed a couple of nights, and went on, cooled on down to Orleans, Katy, Texas. Came back to Enid and parked it over there. And Enid and stayed there for a few days. You know, we just playing around. We enjoyed it. I had a new 88 Oldsmobile I was going with. And then we decided to pull over to Perry. And we did. And I'll never forget, Merle said, you know, Howard, you and I have really never been acquainted until now. And it's a fact that it had been, because there was 3 years difference in our age. Because I was youngest of the 4 of us boys. And he left home when I was just a kid. And when a bunch of us got together, Merle listened, he didn't talk.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
But you get him out by himself, and he talked. And he was so pretty smart. He couldn't do anything with a pencil, but he had a lot in his head. And it wasn't. There's people like that, and I don't know why it is. It seems like they just can't learn to do some things, but in other ways, you could beat him out of a dollar. You know, he was, but we'd sit down there in that old house and talk about them when we were kids, and it was, you know, just a lot of wonderful time spent together. Together, and Vera didn't care for his wife. Vera would stay in the trailer. I walked downtown, so we were only a block and a half square. Yeah. And we just had a good time. And Claude there, cousin, Vera's cousin was there, and they were together a lot. And that's when we decided Merle and I would go to some of those auction sales. They were selling houses and auctioning them off. We wanted to sell ours there in Medicine, but things were slow. And Merle said, "Why don't you go up here and auction that?" So that's what we did. We went up there and talked to an auctioneer, and he said, "I'll sell it to you." I said, "I'll auction it off for I'll be 5%. We built that house, and when we got through, we had $9,250 in it. lived in it 18 years. I got a loan when I bought it for 15 years, and I paid it off when it was, I just had to, I'd been paying on 12 years when I went down and paid the balance of it all. And lived in it 18 years and got $11,000 on it. So I had, Bear said, we can't sell that for that. And I said, well, girl, we lived here in this house for 18 years without even rent. You know, the figure told me. So that was a pretty good deal.
What was this after Alice died? I wonder how long it was before Merle married this other lady. You recall?
Just coming in to be a guest, Danny, but oh, it was quite a little while because Merle was living up on that little brown house, you know. After Alice died, they owned the estate looking a lot. Bad stuff there for a long time before she died, or after she died. They were living in when she died.
You recall that lady's name? I don't think I have her name anywhere, listed in our records.
Had he married?
Yes.
Yeah, her name was, his first wife's name, their name was the same person. Merriman. Alice Merriman was his first wife, and Lorena Merriman was his wife. And I think Lorena's husband was a cousin of Merle's first wife. There were two families of Merrimans. Some of them were nice people. I never was too well acquainted with any of Alice's brothers. Well, I was too. Joe was a brother. Alice came from a good family. That his last wife was an only child, and she liked the Carter too. She didn't have a full
Whenever I was around her, I kind of.
Yeah.
What I kind of thought.
I think horse run off with your dad. He was driving to a buggy. He'd bought a real lively mare, dandy, beautiful animal. And Raymond was working up north of Whipple for a farmer, about 2.5 miles north on the east side. And I think he'd been up for a whole week. And on Saturday evening, he started home. He hooked this old mare up to his buggy and started home. And she went off with him. Had to come down a hill and go across Black Bear Bridge. And Orville was going with Mildred. And we lived there on the Meeks place, maybe up on the right place, which would have been half mile north of her. And Orville heard her hitting that bridge, and it's raining. As they went by Ben Hughes's place, Orville was just driving in, getting ready to tie his old pony up, and Raymond, I don't know whether Raymond just sensed that Orville would be there, but he haunted Orville catches. And that old horse of Orville couldn't run fast enough, flag a train. But anyhow, this old mare was pretty around run down. But she run across that bridge. She gripped those bits in her mouth, and Raymond was pulling on her, and he was clear down in the bed of the buggy. Anyhow, Orville caught her, chased her towards Whipplesea. Ben lived a mile and a half north of Whipple. I don't know how far he tried, but he finally caught her and got her stopped. And I don't remember the rest of the story from there. But anyhow, Raymond kept on driving. And one night, I was playing for a dance, and Dad was playing with me. The only time I ever remember Dad playing, he was courting on the old organ. And it was at old man Sanders' house. He lived just a mile west of us there on the old Viking place, they called it. And Raymond and Cecil had been to this dance. He was taking Cecil home. But we went east, or we went west of there, and came in from the south. You remember south of where Cecil lived, there was a bridge across Warren Creek. And there were some guys that I knew, some rough guys. They was driving an old model Buick, and they were at the dance. They came to the dance, and I saw them. There were guys that would come around and try to break up the dance. They didn't there. But anyhow, Raymond and Cecil just got on that bridge. Here came that Buick. The little car didn't have good lights on, and he hit that car. And that mare lunged, and the top of the buggy, the seat and everything, it tore it right off. You remember the story?
Well, I don't know, but vaguely, go ahead.
Your mother stayed in that seat and floated over the side of the bridge. Didn't hurt her. But Raymond stayed, but the line kept him just the buggy seat. Tore the, you remember those screws that went down the whole seat. Tore that loose. And I think they had the top up. Your mother flew over on it. And this old man run up on the side of next to the fence, and when she came down, the back wheel on the buggy broke. You remember he had a bad side?
Yeah, he always complained about the side.
That's what happened. That's a torso. He broke that wheel down in those spokes. He fell on those spokes. But he never would have used that. He never would ride that. But I did. I drove that. Turner and pasture for a long time. Nobody used it. And one time, I wanted to go over on that road to see Vera. I didn't have it. So I went out and caught that old mare, and I had a buggy, and I looked her up to that, and I drove her over that. I drove her over that same bridge. I thought I'd probably have a runaway there, but I didn't. And I used her there for quite a little while, and I never had any trouble with it because she was frisky. Another time I was thinking about when I was in there. I lived on that Meeks place. Orville and Raymond were on some ponies, and we had an old pony. It was hard to get into the crowd. And sometime, back in the past, someone had dug a well out there. And it wasn't nothing over it. It was just, I don't know how deep it was. But anyhow, it was filled in with weeds and that. And Raymond and Orville was out there on their ponies trying to drive this little pony into the crowd. And Orville looked up, and Raymond's horse was there. Raymond. And Orville hollered, "Raymond!" Raymond said, "Yeah." And Orville said, "Where are you?" And Raymond said, "I'm in this damn way." It fell off that horse. And went into that well there, with tumbleweeds and everything. Oh, he was
Wonder how he got him out.
I don't remember how he got it.
They used to tell about for some reason, Orville was all dressed up, and that he and one of you boys was trying to get him on a horse, helping him lift up on maybe a white horse or something. And they pushed him up too fast, and he flipped over and went over the horse, and he lay in a pile of cow manure. Or he must have been relatively young at that time. I don't know.
Yeah, he had no business trying to farm. He bought one nice young mare from Dad, I remember he bought one. He lived up there north of Blackbird Bridge. I don't know where he was from and why he was coming south, but that black mare, she couldn't get her across that bridge. You remember him telling about dragging her across that?
Yeah, he told us in that tape about that. He put the chain and drug her across, didn't he?
Drug her. She laid down. Finally, I think she got up because got the rubber in her hide for the thick, I think.
You said she'd cross it from then on.
Yeah, got after that she goes.
Let's see, Lizzie and Leona. Then you were gone a lot whenever the other kids were around. They were real young, weren't they?
Yeah,
So you probably don't remember a whole lot
I
about
don't
it.
remember about these lines too. See, after the Meeks place, I don't remember much about that. I was 14 years old, and I worked up there in that Three Sands oil field when I was 15, 16 years old. I drove a team up there when it was John's job. It was in harvest time, and John had hired out to this guy's fellow named Cornish. And Fred Cornish and my team up there in that Three Sands oil field. And John asked me if I'd go up there and drive him until he got through. Maybe he's putting out a wheat crop. I don't know. And I went up there and drove those boogers for a while. And great big team of gray horses, iron gray horses. And I was just a kid. And those skinners told me, said, you better watch those boogers when you go to harness them. They'll squeeze you to death. They'll crowd in against you, you know. But I liked horses. And I thought I was good with horses. I was. I liked them. And I got along real good. But I never forget the sleeping conditions. I slept with two of those old early skinners, you know, they never took a bath. Smelled like, well, they smelled like horses besides
Body. Yeah, body. Normal body.
Yeah.
Well, that back then they used those horses and oxen and stuff for everything. They dig ponds and slips, using slips.
I went to work there in 25 for 26 in April for Sinclair. John was a pusher of a bunch of teams and we'd done dirt work, you know. And they built this lease was kind of flat. We went out there and I don't know how many acres it's took in. But we went in the middle there and started digging out so they could build a dike around so we could pump that salt water in there. And it took long days, you know, to do that. That's
Oh, I imagine.
John was over fast. And had wagons, you know, cleaned up wagons. All your line and elevators and whatever you done needed to pull a well with, you know. Your rod line, you know, you always had to take them off the rig and leave them over the rig. Left a wire, over rig, you know, maybe a piece of wire line came where a swabbing cable, so you could pull your main line over, but you always had to pick up line down, pull it up, then 3 men pick it up, the skinner would drive up close to the well flowing upon you, throw that line up on the elevators. Bull rope, so you had to put your bull ropes on. Before we got tractors, bull ropes. Had to put those bull ropes. You had to learn how to tie that knot off of that soft rope, you know, but that, it was quite an experience. And you run all your babbitt labels like that, you made your wire line hangers, you know, and those, you run that, you babbitt in those ears on there, you know, and other things. Overhaul those old big Tyco engines. Boy, I could just run up and down one of those flywheels like a baby. Boy, I was good at that. They were pretty heavy to get started.
Wow.
35 horse engine. You had to start them by kicking them off on the wheel. Damn, those wheels were spinning back.
Yeah, I can remember that. You know, those great big suits.
Yeah.
Stand there and take your foot and roll that flywheel. That was
Dangerous.
oh man, that thing would kick that till you clear to the top of one of those houses. Backfire.
Backfire. Yeah.
You always start it with the compression off. relief, compression relief
Yeah,
valve.
relief valve drain. That got her started, you shut that relief valve off. Yeah. I remember when I went to work for Continental. I went on this job, on this last night. I had this one. It was an oil engine, Superior oil engine, and pulling another jack rod with the backside crank. And old Bob Lee took me over there, my boss, and he said, "You know anything about an oil engine?" And I said, "Well, a little." And so we just went over there and went in the engine house. And he said, "You watch me." So he set everything where he wanted it. And started and let it run a little while and shut the oil off of it. Stepped back now, he said, "Let me see you do that." So I went over there and started it up. I think I knew probably about as much about it as he did. He said, "I believe you know what you're doing." He said, "I think you'll be all right." Just got in his car and drove home. He said, "I'll be back after you 5 o'clock." See, when I went to work for Continental, I hired out up at Valley Center, a little town 5 miles from Woodstock. And they told me, I went down and talked over and took me to the wheels there in the office. And we said, "You go up to Valley Center and see that guy. There's a job there for him." He said, "We can't hire you. He doesn't hire you." So I went up there and hired out. And he said, "I want you to work at Mound Ridge." Mound Ridge is on up north of Newton, that area. So he said, "Can you report?" You know, when I saw him, I went to Ponca City up there in the afternoon, see, and he didn't come until it was just about dark. And he said, "Can you be down here in the morning at 8 o'clock? I live in Clapham, see, I had another couple with me. I said, "Yeah, I can." So I drove back down there. But he didn't want to, he wanted to be sure that I wasn't lying about it, see, that I had been in Park City. I told him I'd been in Park City. He said, so he said, "Be down there at 8 o'clock, and I have to call in." So they hired me, and he said, "Well, I'm going up to Mound Ridge. You follow me, and that's what I want you to work." Well, I went up there on Wednesday, and I worked there Saturday at noon. And he said, "You report at Geneseo Sunday or next Monday morning." Well, I drove over to Geneseo, and it was raining that Monday morning. I lived in Clapham. It was about 30 miles from Geneseo, and to the office, in the town was out, the camp. So I drove over there, and he said, "Well, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in Sault this morning." That's where North Poison. So I got in the car and drove by Clapham and told Daryl, I said, I'm supposed to be over Sault. So I drove on over there. And old Bob Lee was sitting there in the office. And I told him who it was. And he said, "Yeah, I've been expecting you." He said, "I need a material clerk." Oh, I said, I had a big yard there, see, and anything that came in, everything that went out, he wanted. I said, "I'm the poorest hand in the world. We've had some work here on this song." I said, "What I wanted," told him down at the office, "I'd like to have a coffee with you." And said, "Everything open up." And he said, "You can do this." Okay, I did for 3 or 4 days now. I sat there in the office one morning for work, and I heard him call the superintendent, and he said, "Say, I'm losing the pumper over here on this asphalt piece." And they talked, said, "No, we send over there." So he hung up that phone, and I said, "Did I understand that you got a pump equipment? This lease was just a half a mile from where I had reported for work for Sinclair." And I said, "I'd like to have that job." I said, "I'm living in Clapham, I wouldn't even have to move." And he said, "You really want to do that?" I said, "I sure would." He said, "Well, I won't bother the King." Called the superintendent Kingfisher. He said, I won't bother King fishing anymore today. He said, I'll ask him. So in the morning, Dad called him. And he said, yeah, they said you could have the job. He's all right. And so he just took me over there. And then he came and got me. He said, you all ready for reporting for work? And he said, I can't let you drive your car over there. So it's against the rules. He said, I'll take you over there. He said, I'll be back and get you this afternoon. And he did. And I had to drive over to Clapham. I was on that job about 11 and a half months, and I got that. So that's where they'd built that new house, you know. I didn't get it. But I had a good 27 and a half years.
One of the things they wrote on some information I got on John Sisson, that he drew retirement from Continental more years than he actually worked for Continental.
That's right.
See, you retired at 65.
64 and a half. 64 and a half.
So you haven't caught up with the kid.
No, I retired 1st February 1970. I got 22 years. Yeah, John did work for me over, what, 20 years?
I forget, it was 20 something, but it was maybe 22,
Yeah,
something like
that's about like your dad.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't really remember what Daddy's term, when he worked for him and everything, really. What years exactly.
I think I was in the service then. He was working. J.B. Eli told me he and your dad were working for Amy Boyd. They were doing some work down in that Crest for Continental. And I knew the foreman that your dad went to work for. They finally transferred him to Kansas. He's dead now. But I knew him. He was a nice guy.
I don't remember who it was.
It was Thomas.
Thomas.
Yeah. His name was Thomas. They moved into Madison Lodge for a little while. And then from then on, he went on the northwest up to Hill City, Kansas. I saw him after one time. We had us all up there to a meeting. I saw him. Yeah. Is old Ed Meyer still alive?
As far as I know, he is. Now, of course, with Daddy gone, I don't really have any way of knowing. I mean, we don't take any of the papers there. Last I knew, he was still alive.
I saw a bunch of the boys I used to work with the last time. See, they have a get together, a dinner for the retirees out in Bronx City. Claudia and I haven't gone for the last couple of years. There's a lot of walking that you've got to do, and but it was interesting. I seen Harry, the other boy that worked up there with me, and Ben Steiner, and Herman Cooper, and they all worked in the gang with me, all from home. And I looking around, I saw Tillison, a guy that was my foreman when I last worked over there. He was swell guy to work out. Yeah.
Well, you're at to check on those women.
I expect
See what's
we
going
have.
on.
Get them out there.
Let you rest a while. I don't want to wear you clear.
I don't get tired.
Well, after that big pool tournament, we can get back to
Yeah, that
storytelling.
was good.
I'll keep practicing. One of these days, I'll win one.
Boy, I tell you, hopefully I can shoot pool again after I get to the. I'm gonna have to lay it on those glass because they're just has been a lot of the time since I had this new lens put in. It's like a bee right out there in front of me, just like that. And I called it to the testing of it. He said it's nothing unusual, but if you got it all of the time, so I don't have it all of the time, but I can't see right out of that thing. I can take these glasses off, and your face looks more plain than it does without them, but I can't. I could make out that fine print without the glasses on. So, but anyhow, well, let's go back to about probably Jupiter's. I think 13. I don't know how old he was when he got out of grade school. I don't remember. Because I was married and worked in the oil field over there. We were married in October, the 7th of October in 25, and then the next spring in March I went over there and went to work for an oil company. And things are kind of foggy back in that as to when the folks left the right place and moved over there on that Granddad Ellis place, see, that they got when this thing was settled. Mm-hmm. But I remember Vera and I going over there when Juke was a kid. And Juke was one of the stoutest guys I ever seen. He'd pick up the front end of the Ford car, just back in with the new old Model T. And I remember one time he and I were, well, I was young, see, I was 20 when I was married. It was pretty husky, and we'd had some boxing gloves at home. Dad had bought some gloves, and weren't good ones, but anyhow. I remember going over there that one afternoon and Juke and I sloped barehanded, not in the face, but just arms. And I'll never forget the next morning I went to work, and we had a vise on the corner of the old dock. There's 2 ounces up, and there was a dock on the middle. And we had to thread some pipe. And I had to reach up like that, and I'll tell you, I was beat up. But Juke liked things like that, and he and I could do that and grin at each other. I never was mad at Juke, and I don't think he ever was at me. But anyhow, he got playing guitar, and he was good. Juke was, with no doubt, in my mind, was one of the best on the guitar. To follow a lead like somebody on the violin, he was the best I've ever heard. And there's some of the guys that knew him, played with him, and said the same thing. Far better musicians than I was. Real good violinists that Juke played with. He was a shoe cobbler. This guy was in cutting, and he had polio. He had lost the use of his legs, and he walked with 2 underarm presses. But boy, he was a violinist. I heard him a lot and played with him. He used to come to our house, or come to the house of my father's. Played with him and heard him play. But anyhow, Juke was just a nice kid. But anyhow, him and Lorena got married. Juke was 16, and he didn't have a job. I remember they came over. Mother came over to me and told me that Juke wanted to get married. And he'd asked her to had to go to the courthouse, to get classes. Lorena's father was a bootlegger. It was well known in the community, Fred Market. And I knew his, maybe not at that time, and I got acquainted later with his, her mother's brothers at Garber. Nice fellas, both of them. I liked them, they were nice guys. But anyhow, they got married, and well, there's a lot of it I knew now. But anyhow, Juke, he lived in several different places. They lived in the oil field for a while, and just worked a lot of jobs. Didn't have anything. But anyhow, I was playing the dances all the time there in the oil field, and he played with me. And I'll never forget one night. There was a guy, he was a pumper there, and I didn't know him too well, but I worked in Roustabout, yeah, and seeing him on the lease there. He asked me if I'd play for a dance at his house. Just living in the house, so maybe one room, they'd move everything out and have mostly square dance and two-step and waltz and kind of. But anyhow, we went in there, and I remember Duke pulled off his coat and hung it on the back of the chair, and we were getting our instruments ready. And this guy walked up to Duke. He was kind of a smart aleck bird. Duke was a quiet, sort of a guy. And this guy walked up to him, and when Duke pulled off his coat, and I said, "You want to fight?" Duke looked at him kind of funny, and he said, "Not really," but he said, if that's what you want, yeah. Duke had tore him apart on it. Duke was so stout. He was muscular. He wasn't heavy. Didn't have a lot of meat on him. But boy, he was stout. Gripping his hands, But anyhow, he got married, and they didn't get kicked off too good. And then I'll come up to the time that he went into service in 1942, I believe he did. And Emory, all three did. And I went to the West Coast, and never to the West Coast. Duke took his training at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. And then we went to I started to say Fort Leonard, that's in Georgia. We went to Missouri. And anyhow, we rode back and forth one another. And I gave you some Duke's letters, didn't I?
There was one, yeah.
There was a good one. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, something had happened, and I know that, there's a lot of things happen in your life, Danny. But you just think, well, this was quite an incident, a coincidence. It's just something that happened. But the older I get, the more I believe that God does a lot more things just without, we don't give him credit for it if he doesn't. But anyhow, Vera came down there. At this time I was at Camp Flora, Mississippi, just out of Jackson, about 25 miles. Anyhow, Vera brought the car and came down there. And they were talking at that time, the war was it looked like it was just about over, and they were talking about sending some of us older guys that hadn't had any overseas service over there as kind of a cleanup guy. And so I asked the captain for a furlough. Vera was down there. Juke was at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and I got in contact with him. And I went to Jackson, caught a train to Memphis and Oklahoma City, and then I went to Concord on the train. And I called you from somewhere, I remember now, and told him that I would be in Little Rock, Arkansas at a certain time. And when I left Oklahoma City, I asked the guy there at the window when I could catch a train by. And I understood him to tell me that I got a 12-hour difference. Well, anyhow, I told you I would meet him in the railroad station. Avenue railroad station, I wasn't there. So, anyhow, he thought, well, surely I'll find him somewhere. And I rode the bus from Oklahoma City to Memphis, but out to Arkansas, just a slow ride, but I had plenty of time. And when I was Little Rock, I rode the bus to Little Rock. Fort Chaffee, just out of Little Rock, not too far. And I got off the bus, and I thought, all right, no idea where he was. If my direction was right, I started north. I didn't walk a half a block. I would run into him face to face.
No.
Yeah. Now this once is quite coincidence, but I believe God directed us together.
Yeah.
I believe
Or,
that.
you know, if you all just eat
Yeah.
with that much of a mix-up.
Yeah. So we went to the, what they call it, we went to this place and asked. I had to be back at Camp Flora at a certain time. I think it was the next day sometime. But anyhow, he got us a room, and not a room. It was just a great big old shed building, but there was bunks in there, little cots, his bed for one person. You got a bed close by. I don't think either one of us slept on the mat at all. And I had to catch the train out. I forget how early it was the next morning, but I remember sleeping on the train from Little Rock to Jackson. But that's the last time I saw Jude until he got back from the scene.
Well, no, you were talking about they were going to send some of the older guys in for cleanup. Juke went over there. He was right in the midst of the big fighting.
He was right in it. There was 45 days that he was right in that thing. Never got a scratch. He told me, Danny, that he was one out of, there's 3 out of his platoon, 45, probably in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s of the platoon. And there was even 2 other boys got out of it. He told me that he saw one big lieutenant. He said the officers, you know, they would get picking the officers off, just that'd be the first thing they'd get, the guy in command, you know. But he said he remembered a young lieutenant that they sent out with his men, or the men he was with. One morning he said a German machine gun cut him in 2. He said, just fell. And they were those machine guns. Well, I shot them. We had one that shoots 750 rounds a minute. I shot them. Tripods in there. But Juke went over there, and I don't remember how long he was in, but he was in Patton's army. And you know, Patton was a little rough guy.
Yeah.
And this guy that drove me down, came down there with me, I drove to North City the other day, but we drove back to John's. But he was overseas. He wasn't in the service, but he was in some of the area that Juke was in Germany. But anyhow, Juke came back. But after the war was over, Juke, they kept him over there for quite a little while, and I remember him telling a story about getting acquainted with one of those Dutch girls. And Juke was really, he just highly respected her. But he'd been away from his family for a long time. I don't think there's anything between them at all. It was just a good, friendly relationship. I'm sure there was. And Juke came back, and Lorena was living in Concord City, I believe. So he worked on the dairy up there in Concord City for a long time. After he'd worked on the railroad, I think Henry worked on the same dairy. They out in that area where John and Mother lived, so I don't remember. It was out there that boat dog fishing. But anyhow, Juke and Lorraine came to Boise and became Carolina men of it. I think a great band. Maybe they came to Boise, I don't remember. And I hadn't been back too long to see him go up to work. And when I got back, I was telling you about so ambitious to get back and move into that company house that they let this other guy move into. We had our furniture stored in the upstairs of a friend's house there in flat. But anyhow, by this time we had got a basement apartment in Platinum. Still, our furniture was still over there. We just rented this little basement apartment for us. And Juke Marine came on. And I remember Juke went out on the job with me. And he was, he was bronze complected, handsome booger. Did I give you that picture of him and his
Yeah, it was family. Yeah, it was all of them.
How husky he looked at that time. I just don't remember when that picture was taken, but he had enough meat on him that he was just a good looking man. And I don't remember how long he stayed, but we had a good visit when he and I did out together. And all four together, she had as well. She she had all of the answers, and bless her heart, she knew everything. Any subject, she was right in the middle of it. But anyhow, Juke went back to Ponca City and got on with my shift work. And they bought that little house on North Union, and he just got started on it real good. Just real good, man. He had a job, and some calculating he had to do, but he told me what he had to do. But I just wouldn't have been smart enough for what I've said about Juke. He was smart. He wasn't educated, but Juke was intelligent. He would tell me some of the things he had to do down there that was just way over my head. But anyhow, when I visited, during the time during I go down there on vacation and stay all night with him, me and Juke were always close. Always were. Still are. And I'll never forget, we went down and Juke had to go on shift right in the morning. And we were eating breakfast. Lorraine had a real nice breakfast for him. Just thought everything was wonderful there. And Lorraine, while we were eating, she said, "Howard, did you know Julian was alcoholic?" I said, "What did you say?" She said, "Well, he is," said, he can't buy it naturally. He said, your daddy was an alcoholic. I said, "For crying out loud, Lorraine, what do you?" She said, "Well, your mother told me your daddy was an alcoholic." And she did. I remember twice. But my daddy got a little too much. I remember both times real well. It was good, but I told Claudine, I said, I look at this and everybody I look at. He is without sin, let him cast the first stone. So, it bothered me because I knew that too much drinking will ruin anybody. So I talked to Juke about it since all of this happened. I talked to him at the time. I was even down on the job with him. I could go down there with him and see him go in this room where he had to do all of his book work and all of that stuff. He had a job and he was good at it. And I asked him, I said, "Juke, what's going on here with you and the liquor?" And he said, "Howard, I got to where I was having breaking shifts every week. Every week you went on a different shift. This is hard on anybody."
It is.
And he said, "Juke, Howard, I went to the doctor. I'm still a doctor. So he's no count. I've seen him in different places without his wife where he shouldn't have been. But I said, I went to the doctor and I said, Doc, I'm getting on. I'm having trouble sleeping. Just can't go to sleep." And he said, "You can go get you a little bottle of whiskey and just take it one toddy and it'll relax you." And Juke said, I I tasted that stuff, I just went crazy. He said, the chemistry of my system was just such that it just demanded more. And he just wasn't big enough to fight it. That's all that happened. But it got vested. And you know, when it does, it's got you. It's a clincher. And it's hard to break away from it. But we've got millions of people out there today that are alcoholics. Lots of them. Lots of them don't know anything about it, but they're there. But anyhow, he got terrible. He got mean. See, a lot of this was going on when I was in Kansas. I didn't know anything about it. But he got to the place he was going down on the job drunk, or with a terrible hangover. And along about that time, it was said of John and Jude, they were two of the best liked men in the family. And this came quite along in a gang of men like that. But I never saw Jude grow. But I had used it enough that I knew what it could do for her. Because when I quit, I could see at the time that when I had an experience with the Lord, quit that stuff, I could see where my system was. It was headed in that direction. It certainly was. Because I drank more whiskey and homebrew than 50% of the guy in the world. I was an heavy drinker for 8 years. I drank like a fish. Nobody knew it much, but I did. I made homebrew and Jude would drink. And when he was a kid, you know, like I said, he was playing dancing, but he would drink. I had homebrew. He might drink a bottle, but he never drank enough to where it showed up. But anyhow, the company began to tell him about it, and finally gave him an early retirement, disability retirement. And he got, with the disability retirement, he got more money than he would if he did regular retirement. And he got disability, so I don't know how much money he gets from Conoco, but anyhow, I don't know whether he made provisions for her in case of his death or not. I know I did for hers. It still cost me $77 a month. I noticed the other day, but anyhow, Jude just went from bad to worse. And Orville came back, see, and Orville was a preacher, and Orville thought that I could handle this situation. I couldn't do a thing with Jude. Emery couldn't. Nobody else could. Well, there's a lot of story here. Lorena had moved out, I believe. He was still living in that little unit. He got it on fire. He had to bring himself up, got him on his feet getting out of there. He wondered. Well, we talked him into notion of going to Fort Squad. John brought him to 10 miles from the prairie. This after I moved prairies in Missouri. I don't remember how long Jude was not. But anyhow, Caroline and Merlin, his second wife, we met John at 10 miles from the prairie. There's 64. Took Jude out to Fort Supply and got him admitted. I'll never forget we went in there before this doctor did it. And this man asked him, he said, would you admit that you are an alcoholic? Jude said, yes, I am. He told him, he said, well, usually your stay would be 6 weeks. And if you abide by our ruling and do what we want you to do, we can bring you out of this, but we demand your cooperation. You broke out of there, I think it was in 30 days. Called Lorraine to come after him. And she did. I forget now where she met him, but she met him. And it wasn't more cured than nothing. We got right back to drinking. And got mean as he could be. And I got one. I was fortunate when I was drinking. Well, maybe whipped. But I never did, but I should have been. But anyhow, he, yeah, I can't put this all together, but I know he, I don't know where he was at in Ponca City, but he told me about his conversion. He was on the streets of Ponca City, and he said, Howard, I met the Lord face to face, and he said, yeah, he told me all over about this. It just boggles your mind, some of the things he told us. But he said, God appeared to me and told me, he said, I'm going to help you, I'm going to bring you out of this. And he did, you quit drinking. And he felt like that he was going to preach. And he did. He got into the streets of Ponca City there. He just so involved. And they put him in jail. They thought he was crazy. But he was telling people, he said, you people are going to hell if you don't get right with the Lord. Yeah. And it was just such a miraculous change. And it stayed with him. It stayed with him. Henry, bless his heart, has doubted Jude's sincerity all the way through. And I think probably Mildred did. She told me one time, she said he just an old devil. And he was. I think that probably it had something to do with that even Ponca City going down south to get up. My Lord thought he could talk to Jude and help him reform, but it was hard to move. He tried. And he was deader and stuff. I mean, he wasn't, but it didn't work. But I just don't know what happened with Jude with this. And he still needs you to talk to Jude, and he'll tell you about the Lord.
That's good.
Yeah, he's told me several times. He said, I'm ready to go on. He said, and I nothing here for me anymore. And he said, I just would like not to wake up somewhere. That's how you feel. But I want to go down after he gets some rest. I want to go down this. I'm going to take a little fiddle and I'm going to get Emery out there and keep on that. Oh. Yeah, that got in there like this. Jim used to play it. I had a tape. It was, they taped on the Juke and he was playing the piano when he was in rest home before. It's right there on West Highland. It's right at the edge of Ponca City, nice place. And I talked to him on the phone just the other day, and Marina's already out to you. She's had a stroke, and she's been out to the bar a while. I don't know whether or not she is herself part of the time or not. Jude thinks she knows him, but maybe she does. I mean, when the rest of it's good to see him. But I guess if she does recognize Jude when she goes in the room, when she starts fussing with him. And Jude told me, he said it'd be cheaper, $50 cheaper if I could live in her room. There are two beds in each room, I think, but he said, I'm not going to, because he said it'd just be fussing all the time. So he said, I'll be there when I can go see her. He said, I'm the same with me. He told me, he said, I'm going in the first grade. And Lil Lorena was up there. She spent the night with him after Lorena has been in the hospital and the rest home. And so they talked to me all night. The Duke has sold out of his furniture. That Georgia Curtis has got to use furniture sold down at Harry. Was coming up and make a bid on the stuff that he had left. And I suppose by this time it's probably, what is the date?
This 30th March.
30th March, yeah. 31 days or 30 days, yeah. March 31st, last day. So he might go in. Probably he's got his rent paid up to the first day. They would charge him $350 for the house he was in. It was a pretty good repair when he moved into it, but I don't think it's done anything to it since he moved in there. And Henry's tried to get him to move out. He said there was things in places he could get cheaper, but he wouldn't do it. But anyhow, Duke is, as I said a while ago, I know you've seen me personally, that are just weaklings. They can be led astray pretty easily. And as smart, as intelligent as Duke was in most ways, he had a weak spot and he got the best of it.
What you mentioned earlier about Gene Autry, that he could have gone to work with him and
I think Gene Autry was, Gene Autry heard Duke play. Duke used to play with some of the finest musicians down in the country. And I don't remember the particulars then, but I know Eli knew about it. We talked about it the other day. And Duke at one time, I can't put it all together, but he ran a Charlie Knox was an independent oil dealer, and his offices was in had filling stations around over the country. They had running carriages as you go out south and pray and make that curve right in a little motel, something like that. Right near was an Knox filling station. Duke run there. And I think it was just about that time that some way this connection between him and the Autry group, and he was offered this job. I forget now, I think $75 a week, but he had to move to California. See, Will Rogers was the guy that got, you probably knew that story, that got Gene Autry started in the youth business. You know, this little town down there somewhere by the name of Gene Autry.
Yeah, they're by Ardmore.
Well, as I remember the story, he was what we call him a telegrapher. Telegraphy.
Yes.
And Gene Autry was, Will Rogers came by and Gene was in there picking on that guitar. So I heard the story. Rogers told him, he said, the right people could hear you. You could go someplace with that music, and I guess that the right people did hear him, and he did go somewhere. But he owned some ball club, I think that.
Yeah, Angels, I think.
I see Chapter 13 down in Oklahoma City, entered him into the Hall of Fame. But Duke had to get him going. And then that Luce and Elroy was a real low as you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I bet you that would really go too.
Oh, and that, he and Lorene went out to him and tried that. Elroy they had marriages. He thought he had good marriage. He married a beautiful young girl out south. I don't know if his grandchildren still come to see Duke or not, but they did for a long time. Elroy had married while he was in the service, and when he got killed, they wanted to ship his body back. He was she said no, she couldn't bear him until she didn't want to go to that expense. And Jubilee went up to dinner. But all of this thing that you've gone through in the service, is marital problems, losing our boy. I can relate to him.
Well, Dad used to tell about that some big famous battle or something that you supposedly was in.
Battle of the Bulge.
Was it the Bulge?
I understand what he was on.
And there was some river or something that they crossed, and he was.
Yeah, what river? Was that Ryan?
Well, I think so. But
I believe, yeah.
he was supposedly the last one that crossed it before it blew up or something.
Never got a scratch.
Those letters that he had written to you and Daddy he was using his cigarette light. I mean, the light off his cigarette to write those. And he would put. He had 2 pairs of socks. He put one pair on his chest at night, or next to his body to dry so he'd have at least dry socks to start the day off. And those socks.
Told me there was for I don't know how many weeks that we didn't have a change of clothes. When they take those little towns, he said we'd go in there, and some of those houses we run the people out. And he said we were so tired we'd just fall into those beds. And he said I walked around, looked in the glass and looked at myself, and he said that just scared me the way I was. The beard was long, dirty, telling me about edging away of a night around those buildings, I didn't always I think he thought it was a German soldier. It happened to be some kind of animal. Didn't have to scare it.
No.
But I remember very plain you telling me. Howard, he said, I wasted a lot of ammunition. He said, I never aimed my rifle at a man all the time I was. He said, I didn't want to shoot. But he said, if I killed a man, I didn't. He said, I didn't want to kill anybody, and I didn't want to get killed. He said, I never aimed that rifle. But I don't believe. He said, if I killed somebody, it was by accident. But he said, I saw a lot of deaths. Until I remember him telling me about they captured a bunch of German soldiers. And he said he was a squad leader who it was. He said, you take those guys. And he said they went back there a little ways where we heard so many shots, and he said, boy, came back. So they got rid of a lot of their soldiers. War is a cruel thing.
Oh,
It's a cruel thing. I heard him talk about Hussein, getting off the story, and talking about people that are cruel. They were talking about he was the kind of a guy that Hitler was. And they said that he has some woman that begged to release her husband. He said he would, and he did. But he was chopped up to pieces in a plastic bag when she went. Just that, you just can't imagine people like that.
No.
But they are.
It's a shame they didn't get him during that war.
Yeah, I wish they would have. I wish they would have. I was listening to 48 Hours last night before you guys came. We talked about history. Very few governments in the world do that in the We're saying said that he there's some connections between a lot of the main banks and the Kissingers and stuff. It's on the board. A lot of these big companies. And so he gets, I think he said $40,000 a speech when he goes out and talks for an hour or something like that. I don't know if he said he had a close connection with Hussein. We just don't know this world is. We don't know what's looking at it. I guess it's best.
Probably scare us if we did.
Yeah. Did you notice that cap I got just got a little nap on it? See that hanging?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's neat.
Got a novel head. Danny, it's about 6:20 and I gotta go in the little boys' room and I think we'll go up and see if we can get some supper.
Yeah, we need to go see if we can find Patty some ice cream.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll take that back then. A little over. I don't think we measured 6'1", but I think we were just a little over. Weighed about 160 pounds.
Yeah, Merle was fairly slender, wasn't he?
Never did get to be hurt. He was heavier, I think, when he died than he ever had been before. Living there in town, but doing getting much exercise, but I told you the story about us being down there, leaving there on Wednesday morning at trailer court south of the railroad track. Mother was down in his little white 4-door sedan, 46 over. And was there in the yard and we drove away, and then Joe Shoot called me Friday morning at 1 o'clock and said Marty died. He was put on travel trip. We just got him home, got him parked in the yard. It was quite a shock. Orville is 5'11" and a half.
5'11".
And he was right around 185, 90. His body was flat. He was pretty big when he was 18, 20 years old. Husky was down over there. And I think he wore about an 8.5 shoe. None of us had. I think I've been when he did. Dad had smaller feet than I did. He got to 7. I come on, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's what Daddy wore, was about 7.
And Orville was always a good dresser.
Oh, yeah. He still is.
I've been in his house and been changing bow ties 3 or 4 times a day. And then from your daddy. His one was what, 55 or 60 something.
Well, yeah, I think he got up in the 170s there at one time. But he was about 5'7" or 5'8", I think.
Yeah. He's the shortest in the family. Daddy was the shortest boy. Well, you can tell that by that family group picture, and they're still keeping him here sitting down. They're just kids yet, but they were the shortest. And then it would be me. I usually, my normal weight was about 107, 55. I weighed 150 when I was 20 years old. Then I got married, I weighed 150. And I went up to 165 and 70, just maintained that weight until I told you about getting up to 194. I went on that job for Continental and had an ulcer. And I went to where there was a clinic in Excelsior Springs, Missouri. Like, I can't remember. It was McClary's clinic, and it was a colon and rectal clinic. And I went up there and had treatments. And the old doctor there, I'll never forget, he said, the best thing for your condition is goat's milk. I said, man, I live in a little town in Kansas and I couldn't get a goat. And he said, well, it'd be the best thing for us to drink goat's milk. And he really impressed it on me that that's what I needed, and I was suffering with that thing. And this was probably in 41. And I came home and I began to look around for a goat. But I first had to ask the guy that I was renting from, if I could find a goat, could I keep it there, because it was a little chicken house. His folks had lived there, and they had died. Great big old, a 2-story white warehouse. And he said, well, sure, keep one. And it would have a chicken wire fence there, see. So I began to look around, and I was going to church. We were going to church clear down at the going to Baptist church in the country. I went some to the Methodist church there, but we'd both of us been used to going to the Baptist church, and we started going to the little church down at Raymond, Kansas. And I found out there was a fellow there by the name of Harlan who had goats. Went out and talked to him. He had a little brown. The breed was Nubian.
Yeah.
She had just been fresh. And she had a mother boy in a big old kitchen hanging down. And I bought her, did $15 for her. And, you know, you can milk them with goats for 2 years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you can milk them for 2 years. Well, anyhow, I took the back seat out of this little 39 Chevy out there and padded it, and then went down and I went down and got her in there. There was a farmer out north of town that had some real good alfalfa hay. The Marblehead goats back there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. He had his debladed there in town, you know, so we could. But he had the food formula for milk goats that he got from A&M Cottage. And I got that formula, and that milk, that goat ate the right kind of food for a while. That milk got good, sweeter. Gosh, man, we made ice cream out of that goat's milk. Bought a cranker, $2.98 for a gallon.
Ice cream.
Yeah. And boy, we had ice cream, and I got fat. I'd wake up at night, hurt my good drinking the gas goat's milk. I had that job out there from that, and I said it was in 41, because I went in the Army in 43 in July, last July. But when I had weighed 194 pounds, so that was dressed. When I went in the service, I weighed 180 pounds, stripped. Well, I was pretty well healed. I went in the service, and boy, they took that grease off me, and I'm hurt.
I bet.
Yeah. But that really was, I got, it's a story there. But, next would be Lizzie younger than I am. And I don't know how, I guess Lizzie probably about 5'5", maybe 6. Vera was 5'7". Yeah. And her normal weight was about, for a long time, about 138. She understand what she was taught. And, Lizzie, I don't think I heard it, probably like that. Leon is just like a yo-yo. She just went
Up and
up and down, and still is. And Vinny's the biggest one of the girls. Bigger bone, just a bigger person. I bet now she weighed 170 pounds.
She takes more after her mother than the other girls do.
She does. But Danny, she could just remember things that happened when she was a kid, just in detail. I can't, I just, well, see, some of the rest of the kids won't seem to be able to, but she can, and she used to come to our family reunions, we'd have more fun, she could play the piano, she could sing. She and Emily used to sing together, and being a good singer, good musician. But you know, I don't know what it was. Johnny maybe being a Catholic had something to do with the closeness we'd like to have in the family. He was always kind of shied away from me and all of that thing, especially Orville. In fact, Beanie told me that that's one reason that they traded Orville to talk to him. I would. But I never thought he didn't always like him. Still do. But I remember coming home, me and your dad, raising Mama, Juba. We don't know. Coming home. Orville or somebody called stuff. Born kept us down. Remember, Beanie was born in the afternoon at the house. Mother never went to the hospital. I was a kid. Then, see, I was born in 1905, and I was 15. I was 15 and got out of grade school. I was slow. Lizzie said I was slow. I guess I was. But I missed quite a lot when I was younger, you know, picking cotton and things like that, working out for people. But I got to take an 8th grade examination. Lizzie and I went in and took it at the government at Perry, the county superintendent. And I made a good grade on everything. But from the time I was, and your dad too, time I was 15, 16 years old, we were just in and out of home. We worked out somewhere.
So you all really left home pretty early, didn't you? All of them.
I had to hear Raymond worked for the boy. I remember dating there quite a lot. I worked for Bob Keating, a farmer, and helped him put out his wheat and helped him harvest his wheat. First guy I worked for was the first summer we moved back to Noble County in the spring of 1920. I worked for Roy Date. So I think I was telling about him last night about that little Samson tractor. I would ride the binder, you know, and we'd cut for a while, and then he'd rest and I'd sharp the stuff up. At $3 a day. Pretty good money.
Yeah. Back then.
I had well, I drove a bundle wagon to the harvest before. For a little guy north, a mile north, a mile and a half, mile and a quarter east of Covington, a fellow named Johnny Mars. We had the fellow named Swear had a little 18-inch separator. Just throw one bundle in at a time. And had 3 bundle wagons. And I drove one of the bundle wagons, and 2 guys pitching in the field, pitching into the wagon. And you just fed that little machine from one side. And I drove that bundle wagon the summer I was 13. And still I was a pretty good sized kid. And I remember we thrashed for 28 days. And Dad had Mara was big enough then where he was doing most of the farming. We lived on a farm that was a good wheat land, and done real good. That year was good. I had a good wheat crop and got a good crops for it. That's the only year I can remember when it looked like the things were kind of shaping up. Dad was working in town as an elevator, and as a year Emmy was born in 1919.
What about him? We haven't said much about him. What about, let's see, his height, we skipped him. Ian's, did we mention June on height?
No, we haven't mentioned Jude. That was skipped Jude. I'm not for sure, but I don't believe Jude was quite 6 foot. I think he's probably about 5'11" and a half. I would imagine. He was very heavy. I think about the heaviest is when he came back out of service. Looked good and had a pretty hair too.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty hair. And he's a nice husky man. Stallion of gold. But he was, I think, Juke when he was at himself, probably 160, 65.
He'd be lucky to weigh 100 pounds now, wouldn't he? Maybe 115, 120. He looked like he's just skin and bones.
He was getting a bit up there. Then he's been that way for 10 years. Just, I don't see how in the world if he has lived. He just sits and drinks black coffee and smokes cigarettes all day long. And Amber said he just doesn't eat good, but he'll eat definitely when he gets that.
Yeah.
He might fool us when he gets that rest.
Yeah.
They'll take his medicine away from him. They'll give it to him when he's supposed to have it. And they'll feed him when he's supposed to eat. And I advise him, I said, Chief, I'm glad you're doing it. It's going to be good for you because you're going to eat right. And probably it might slow him down on those cigarettes.
Yeah.
If he has to go outside to smoke, it'll slow him down because he's going to have to want to smoke pretty bad before he's going to go out there, especially in the wintertime. So he told Leon, and I think he told me, and I was talking about it on the phone the other day. He said, Chip used to visit. Those people go in the rooms. He said, a lot of them thought I was preaching. Yeah, he'd go in and read the Bible to him and talk to him about the Lord. I think he would again.
Yeah.
I think he would again. So I'm glad he's going. See, he was 79 years old at 24 minutes. Someone had told me the way he was 10 or 12 years ago, he didn't be that long. Well, he just, I've seen him, a lot of the rest of it, especially Emmer. I think Emmer's beginning to kind of see it now. But maybe that this war experience had something to do with such happening. But now I do, I think that's quite a lot to do with it.
I imagine so.
I've seen him tell about some of the things he just did not.
What about Emery? He was just a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, when you probably weren't around him much.
No, I wasn't around him much. I can remember on the right place there north of the Brooklyn Schoolhouse. There's a yellow house set on the west side, and that's where they lived. There's a big old house. That's where we lived when I got married. 1925. Emmy's birthday's in July. He was 73 and I'll be 86. 87. So he was just a kid, He got married. I'll never forget it. Emmy was, I don't know where he got it, but Remember Oscar Minor, this was Dad's sister's family. Oscar, and then there was Oscar and Ella and Myrtle, two sisters, and this one boy that had Julie, Dad's older sister had. And Julie and Uncle Fred and Oscar and his wife and came over to our place for the all right. Emery was a cute little red-headed. And I'll never forget Oscar said, "Come go home with me, Emery." And Emery said, "No," he said, "he can't do it." He said, "Why can't you do it?" He said, "I got to stay home. I've got to stay home and lead the old blind turkey to water." We never had a turkey. We never did have a turkey. And old Oscar thought that Emery was so cute. He was cute as he could be. And Emery is a good looking man. Well, I don't know where he ever got that, but the old Oscar just laughed and laughed at that. And anyhow, I can't remember much about her. And I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
I took her after Father died one time. It was in 1939. The year I moved to Kansas. And Vera had a half-brother that lived in northeastern Colorado. And he had been down and stayed with us when he got a job and worked there in the oil field. And they had left and he went back north and east of Greeley, Colorado, and fought right out there in the Ball Prairie. That's where she had grown up. And so Vera and I decided to go out there. And I asked Mother and Beat and every living other cousin and parent. I asked Mother if she'd like to go on. And she said, "Oh, she'd like to." Beating on that. She just I was in 39, Beating was born in 21, so she'd go back pretty good sized girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went out to Buffalo, Oklahoma, and went north up through Lebanon, and off through northwestern Kansas, and cut across the corner of Nebraska, and came in Fort Morgan, Colorado, and they lived in a little town named Bridgeville, close to it. We'd never been in, but we found it over there. And they had a little, they had gone back and they had adopted a little boy. And we all got in our car. It was three of them, you see, and four of us. We got in that little shit and went to up in the mountain. We went into that Big Thompson Canyon, you know, where they had that flood.
Yeah.
Washed out all the Estes Park. And we rented a cabin there, a little house. It was $5. And it had beds in there where you could all sleep. It had a kitchen, we had a kitchen and everything. We rented that cabin for $5. Mother really enjoyed that trip. I thought the mountains would scare her. I'd never been in the mountains before. But I enjoyed them. I remember that was hard. Oh, they had four-wheel brakes on them, did they? 39?
I don't know.
I don't know. I know I did it on, but we drove up there, we drove up to Estes Park. As long as it's on the inside. Boy, you go out. Mother would sit there and just like this and look down into those canyons. She just enjoyed that, you know. And some people scare you to death to do that stuff. But she really enjoyed it. I was so glad that we took it. I remember I ran over to Farrell and got him. No, I'm wrong. I'm not telling this story right. We didn't go through that. We went out through Monday. Because I know we stayed all night in the town. And there's mother is. She really never knew her mother either. represented her mother. We stayed all night in town over there. She came to our place, she and her husband. And Harold was another boy, and I don't know. I think it was just half brother or sister. And she didn't know for sure. Rhodey didn't know for sure. But, you know, that takes a toll on the kid.
Oh,
She never said much about it, but I know she thought about it. I asked her if she wanted to go see her mother. She said no. Okay, very well. She came to our place one time, she and this guy, and he run a little second-hand store in this town. And they wanted us to come out and see her. She never did. She never saw her after that. I don't think she ever went to her. I think she's, I just don't know. But we had a good life together. We lived together 54 years and 7 months and 14 days.
that's quite a while.
We had our 50th wedding anniversary after we moved to Maryland. And we kind of thought about having there in the Fellowship Hall at the Baptist Church. Dorothy, she wanted to promote it. And Mary said if she gets into this thing, she's going to try to make a big deal out of it other than beer. So she wants to splurge, and beer was just the other way. You know, Dorothy wanted to be she wanted to be a wheel. And they were just as opposite as could be. She said, I don't want to have anything to do with it, so we didn't have it. I wish now we had it. And we didn't.
How's that Dorothy?
Dorothy was, no, Dorothy is, was Dorothy's mother was, and Bear's mother were half sisters.
Oh.
Dorothy Dow. So yeah, she's Elmer to Elmer Road down that's got the road with us. Was a sister to Bear's, or half sister to Bear's mother. And when Bear was 7 years old, she came down and lived down before that. She had lived with her grandfather up in Iowa. He died in 1935. Bear and I rose right like that both young.
We hadn't talked much about Uncle Eli. I mean, your brother Eli. Other than the fact that just when he was young, he had to pretty well take care of your mother.
Yeah.
I'm not that sure of his work days, you know. I don't
Well,
know he's-
when they were not too long after Eli worked in the kitchen in the restaurant there on the east side of the square for a while. I can't remember for sure, but he went to work for I just don't know that. I'm not sure who he worked for. He got married in I guess in the 30s. I don't know early 30s.
we've got it written down, but I don't know who it was.
But he done a lot of jobs. He was telling me the other night that him and your dad cut wood out south of town there, and that's how he supported the family. Got a dog and had a record for it. I can remember my dad and mother lived in Jim Marshall, little house on the east side there, and mother and Eli being in Emory. But Emory never went to school. He had no interest in music or anything else. I don't think he ever got any help from the school. He didn't get to the 8th grade. But Eli lot of women. He had a lot of girlfriends. And his hair was kind of wavy. Parted in the middle, just waved back. Nice, he was nice looking. And a good dresser. He was always
Yeah,
a
he always
sporty
had.
dresser. And I remember several girls who were quite big. And he always enjoyed dancing. He liked to dance. It was still with it. It was felt like it. But I can go back. He went to work for Emil Voigt. I think the first job he got with Emil Voigt, Emil had a farm down by Ingalls. Where Ingalls is? North of Ripley. In that Ripley area.
I remember when they were at a farm,
Yeah.
we went out there, but I don't.
I don't ever remember being at the farm, but I know he lived out there. And he was telling me yesterday about before this about he and Dorothy both got fat there, buttered eggs and all that. So he ran out the ranch. I guess I don't know how big a ranch it was, but I know he enjoyed that because that's right down his alley. Eli likes horses and always had them. Here remind me, I got a picture upstairs in my Bible of Eli's horse, and I'm on him one time. They had a family reunion at Eli's there in Perry. He and Dorothy lived there in Perry on the north, southeast side, and they bought a house. They both knew how to handle money. They never did make a lot of money, but they knew what to do with it and how to handle it. And he bought a home there from his father-in-law, and they went to Ripley. He went to work for Berry Oil Company. It was big, it was just a small company, but he worked up there pretty well with it. And bought a big old two-story house there in Ripley, and lived in it for a little long. It was a nice house. And Dorothy took care of little kids. You'd go there and she'd have a whole house full of little kids. And Elaine does the same thing. Where she was. And Eli was working. And then, before he retired, they built a nice big home there. Nice.
See, I never did go to that. I don't know.
Bill and I used to go there. After I was, they still lived there. See, Eli was still working after I retired. And Bill and I, and every time we'd go southeast with the travel trailer, we'd go by their place, and see them. And Eli and I have always been pretty close. Still are. Well, I've been close to all my brothers. Like I told you last night, we used to fight. Me and your dad used to fight, but we never did get to where we were, like some I hated about your sister. I'll tell you, it's just. The family used to have a lot of fun. I go back to, he and I were going to school there. We lived on that Eli's place. We went to school at Elmdale, and there were schoolers and Dad's. Boy, when Frank Adams, he lived on John Sisson's dad and mother had moved to Coventry. And they lived on a house over there that John, I think, was born to. Frank Adams, Aunt Mary, mother's sister, was our teacher. And we moved into that on July, so we kind of set it for Christmas time. And started going to school with Aunt Mary. And I don't know how in the world, what in the world called it, but Raymond and I both got us a blade racer in Clarion School. Frank had a blade racer. And Aunt Mary caught us with it. Well, I tell you, she put us off with that right quick. But for kids, you think about it be it's all on there now, but then I think, well, I used to carry a razor that's about as bad as. But I remember that your dad was as ornery as he could be. He'd do things that a lot of people wouldn't think about. Had to go up front, had the pencil sharpeners on the teacher's desk. And I was sitting right right behind him like this. And you'd have to hold up your hand and ask if you go up and sharpen your pencil. A lot of kids done that just to kill time. But I went and had that pencil sharp. I came back and had it in my mouth. And in respect, hit that pencil, drove that thing right in the lip. Oh, it hurt. I wanted to kill him. And just as soon as, she marches out this, and boy, when she sat there, Mesco Raymond headed for the house just this morning. And I don't remember now whether I caught him or not, but boy, we had a rough and tumble over that. We used to have some pretty good scrambles, but we never did fall out, He was just your dad was just a funny guy. He was always and nobody wanted nobody better to try to make it a thing. So he was a stout little man. I've seen him dead, and maybe you remember. He'd take a stick and jump over it and jump back out. You ever seen him do that? Yeah. He could do it. Yeah, he liked horses. Like cattle.
Even up when he was in his 70s, he could still. We'd go up there to cut wood and get on the end of the saw, and he'd work me down.
Yeah.
I couldn't stay up with him.
He was always a pretty healthy man.
But see, back then, Daddy worked for the CC camp or whatever, WPA, when we built this camp, CC camp up here.
I worked on WPA.
You just had to work.
That's right. You just had to. I remember that. I was out of work in Sinclair, when I was out. You should get that to the phone right there, Bob. I was out of work and Sinclair had 2 old horses. And I knew the superintendent. And had a barn down there. You don't have plenty of hay in it. The little horses just running out there in the pasture. And he asked me if I'd like to. I was painting up gardens for people in the spring. He asked me if I'd like to get that old team. And had a harness for them, like cloud gardens. Any way you could. He said, "You got plenty of hay down there, you'll have to go out and grain garden." So pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Hi, Leonard. What are you doing? Do what now? Let's see. Yeah. Let's see, Leonard. Tomorrow, this is what, Monday? Okay, we're going into Ponca and Perry tomorrow. It'll probably be either, I doubt if it'll be tomorrow evening, it'll probably be Wednesday. Either tomorrow evening or Wednesday. Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, yeah.
She,
Yeah, we just kind of took it easy today. More like a vacation ought to be, I think.
ask how Elaine's daddy is, Danny.
How's Elaine's dad? Howard was asking. Heard him. Yeah. Well, we don't. No, she hadn't been doing a whole lot. She told you. She told us that you helped her and everything fix breakfast. Sure.
That's the best breakfast I've had in a long time around here.
Okay, we don't know. I mean, we ran into problems yesterday. We didn't get up here till 8:30. Well, was it? Yeah, after 8:30. And so that kind of, we just, yeah. Okay, well, we'll call you when we know, it'll either be like I'd say, it'd be late tomorrow evening or Wednesday morning. And, but you go ahead and go roping. Don't wait on us. Yeah, so if we show up, we'll see. We'll come down here and watch you or something. So go ahead and do that. Don't worry about us.
All right.
Then. I wish that could be more definite for these people, but we just don't know. It's hard to make plans like that.
Yeah.
And then when you do, then you start hurting people's feelings because you just come in for 30 minutes. So you just can't hardly do that. We're trying to push too much into too short a time, but at the same time, we need to get back ourselves and get a bunch of stuff done. In fact, we didn't even talk about just staying home, but we said we were going to come up and we needed to. So
I'm glad you did.
we've always found reasons in the past not to.
Yeah.
Not to go and not to do. And anymore we're going to find more reasons to go instead of.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm glad that Darren and I did. When we go on vacation, we went to Texas.
Yeah.
We never stayed at home. We went to Texas.
Well, see, that's us, and that's what keeps bothering me is that we keep waiting. That we're not ready yet. We're not ready, and time just keeps slipping. My eyes bother me more. I can't drive at night hardly. And,
Just,
you just keep putting it off, and one of these days it's going to be too late. And it won't matter what you're capable. I mean, what you may be able to buy or whatever. You can't use it. It ain't going to do you good.
Just like I can see Claudia and I have been married 11 years, the 20th of May. Well, when we got married, I was husky, and we went a lot of places. Good night. We just went on those bus trips we did in the car, and every year we'd take a bus trip or two. But we did up until we moved here, and I had one that they wanted us to go with them, or he stared at me. The song was going to church kind of see the motor of it, and we were going clear in the northeastern states, going into Vermont, and I wanted to go into the state where Dad came from, and I said, Dad, And we bought this place, and I started moving boxes of stuff down here in the pickup, carrying them down here. And that was in '85. And that took something out of me that I've never got back. I was 80 years old then.
Yeah.
And I just never bounced back. And we got moved before the time came that we were to go on that trip. We just played the house.
Too tired.
Just didn't go. But and it was about 11-day trip. Through the winter, wearing terrible. Hurry ever, all of the time to keep up with the schedule. See.
Yeah.
They went into Canada. So that really didn't get to go. I remember one year, I was 51 during our went. I was through Missouri and went up to Georgetown, Kentucky, and then went south through, then we came in eastern Tennessee and came up all the way through Tennessee. It was pretty well the eastern edge, and came up to, stopped at, stayed all night at Nashville, and went to church there. And I remember Vera got her hair set, was right along the Mississippi River there, go across the bridge. And we just went places.
Yeah.
We've done it every year. I don't know how many years we went out to Durango, Colorado. We've gone all over parts of Colorado. We had a lot of fun together. And then after we retired, well, she enjoyed that travel trailer. I did too. I pulled that little one too. In Phoenix, we had a friend out there that had her husband, she and her husband had lived with us some when they first came to Kansas. He had died, and she had got down to Phoenix, and she and Vera were real close friends, and we went out there and parked the trailer, and the three of us went up to Grand Canyon, and we just, I'm glad that we did. And then Claudine and I had a good time. It's been real good fun. Yeah. Danny had a roping somewhere around the
Leonard, I just gonna practice Tuesday
Oh.
night, tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah. He enjoys that.
He must be good at it. I've never
Yeah,
seen
I
it.
watched
I'd
him.
like to watch it.
I watched him hero.
Yeah.
But I just don't care for it. I told Eno, I just hate to see those little calves have to go through that punishment. He said, well, they all get up and walk away. I know it. I've seen it. There's over 200 or 300 pound calves, like one big little horse catching with a head and the other with it, and just stretch them out like that. They just lay there lifeless for a while. It's just absolutely. And we went down to Eli's. They were having roping out, pushing them not too far. They've been out for winter. Leonard was working his hot and the little horses sweating. And there's a lot of guys out there with horses, every go. And when that little calf out there, boy, here these two guys go. One catching the heel, and Leonard just like that, catch that calf heel, and it's remarkable that guy. We won not too long ago, like on some place it was $1,000. But I think it just goes like this.
I imagine it does. It'd be an expensive hobby. Of course, all hobbies are expensive.
Oh, yeah. But I think he was telling me he goes, she plays at the church. She's a pianist at the church. They're active in the church. And Leonard takes an active part. He was telling us there about taking a bunch of little kids, and I think to go to the restaurant, to see old people like that. Leonard's a good guy. But that's an expensive hobby, this guy. Got a big old 3/4 ton pickup, and he's got a horse. The horse he rides for $1,450.
It's a big horse.
I don't believe I've seen him. I've seen the other horse, the one he was roping out and mashed out. He wasn't quite that big. He was heavy bodied, short-legged horse.
Well, Eli was wasn't he a roper? Pretty good roper?
Yeah.
Don't
I think he was. He always had a horse. Even there, working in Ripley, he always had it.
he? That old Midge.
This is a horse that I've got a picture of when I'm on him. Maybe that is old.
I'd say it probably is. See, he sold her and then he went back and bought her back.
Wasn't she the one that would need? The guy that he sold her to, one?
Maybe that was it. I don't know.
But I showed him that picture. He looked at it and looked at it. And he said this. And then he showed it to Leonard. Leonard looked at it and he said, well, Leonard, I believe Sandra, what is that on that horse? And I said, it's me. I don't think it was mine, but I've got a white hat on, And I've got, well, I'm not either. I never did. A lot of my weight was like yours, was in my shoulders.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever got bigger than 34 horsepower. It was pretty tight, but I knew very well. But that was one of our family reunions way back there when we first started. I expected to see him before I went in service.
Yeah, I remember that. The family reunion we had there, Ripley at Eli's place.
Yeah.
That was one of the best ones we ever had, I thought.
That was good. Do you remember when we had them out there at the CC campus out from Curry?
Yeah, now we didn't go to a lot of those. That was after we married, Patty and I married. And
Oh, yeah.
we didn't, I've gone out there a few times, but during that time when we quit going.
See, I had no Oklahoma, but I just come to Oklahoma City there in time.
Yeah, there with that Lincoln Park Zoo. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. Maybe you remember your dad down there that day, that guy was riding that bicycle on there. You remember that? Mm-hmm. That tight one, that guy was riding that bicycle. He made a little blood and ran his off. He'd come off. I thought, sure, that guy. That guy could make you laugh every time. He was a good hand for coming. He needed those engines.
Oh, yeah.
Even better than I did. So I never had those. We didn't have those very much. And I wouldn't have worked on them everything we had to like. When I went to work for them, I maybe told you about them. I had that run oil, little Superior oil. But I had run those for I worked for St. Clair, and you know, not that particular kind of an engine, but they had oil engine, and some Webbers, and Tyco Reeds, a lot of different kind of oil engines,
Waukesha.
Yeah. Yeah, Cornell was good for me and your dad, Norwood. And two
John Sisson.
process. And George Boucher, he was probably the first house he owned when he and Lona were married. He had bought that from Continental. Continental built a lot of employees' houses, would build them and rent them to the employees on payout. They could pay them out. So George was buying that with Conoco when we got married. Nice house. Yeah.
I know it was always fun to go visit them because their kids always had everything. Those boys had trains,
Yeah, they did.
all kinds of the fancy toys and stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have.
Yeah. I never did. I was around them quite a lot, but I never realized that there wasn't any relationship between she and George at all. So I know she told, I think she told me way back that she said, as soon as I get those kids through school, I'm leaving that guy.
Yeah, I was surprised,
But he was a good provider, George was. He took care of his kids. I don't know.
Well, she left him too right after Della left, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned your grandfather last night. You said he was I know we got this on tape somewhere, but he was a music teacher. And that's where a lot of this music came from, all the family.
Yeah, Uncle Warren was a good musician. Sammy was a good musician. Sammy gave me did I give it to you? A box of sheet music. No words, just music.
I don't know about that. I have a box, but mostly what you gave me, I think, was what we sang at the reunion and things of that nature.
Oh yeah, some of the Norwood probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I've done with that. Things but I don't read music. But Sammy, Emmy never did care for Sammy's on the violin. But Sammy was good. I remember one time, Mary Lane, mother, that's father, being in on Jukin Arena, and Eli and Dorothy went out there, and Sammy had been asked to play at a dance. I think it was on a Saturday night, and Eli and I and Beer and Dorothy went to the dance, and we'd got to Uncle Warren's, and they did, I guess they'd had something they did offer to get us anything to eat, so we went in the vice and we went to the dance and we didn't play a little while. Then I think we came back by there, we drove in the vice and got us a hamburger. And got up the next morning, Sammy was driving a 1933 Chevrolet. And those doors open from the front.
Yeah, suicide doors.
Yeah, that's where he slept when he got home. I don't know where you slept, but that's where they slept when he got home. And I'll never forget this. Maybe I've told you this story. They had been invited way down the country to a ranch of friend down there. A lot of people come to. And we went down there and well, they wanted us to go along, because they wanted to go. So we went. And we was sitting around there pretty quick. Some guy wanted a half a gallon of fruit jar full of corn whiskey. Set it out there in front of it. And guys took a drink. And after I was saved, I didn't drink. After they handed that thumb award, and the man tipped that up, and I thought he was going to drain her dry. He just glue, 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 glue. And man, that night when we came home, he couldn't get the gun to his hat for so long. And he tried to fiddle it, but after he got it, couldn't reach too tight. But Sammy was a good violinist. Played a lot of, he played a type of music that Emma didn't care for. See,
Yeah, that probably is a lot of
the kind of music I like, Emma, he wouldn't listen to it. He likes some of that stuff that to me